Ladies and gentlemen and non-binary pals, please give a warm welcome to our guests and friends on today's wonderful episode of Getting Excited About Movies. Today's guests are Nia, Vixen of Fiction, Zara Hoffman, Tom, and your host, Glory. Hello. I will turn on my cam now. Hello.
Hello.
I can only click on so many things at once. We've made it to another week.
Great.
Oh, thank you.
That was
I always
good.
wanted to be an announcer. So, welcome everyone who's here. We're so excited to have our lovely and amazingly intelligent guests. Such sparkling personalities that Tom and I both feel like we can just take a step back and like just coast this one. Except we're a little too excited to coast because we're just like, this is going to be so much fun. This is going to be so much fun. So again, no chill, but a good kind of no chill.
The best kind.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Would anyone like to do an intro? I've got a button. We can do a little intro. If you don't, there's no pressure. Nope. Okay, that's fine. I just want to make sure people are getting the promotion they want. Because I just want to point out, if you haven't checked the show description below, it is extensive. I don't know if you know, but like there are links for Vixen of Fiction. She is so talented, y'all. Like, I mean, when I found out, like, wait, she's writing a novel, but also has a webcomic and does her own illustrations and everything. Like, y'all, I mean, I'm lucky if I can draw doodles. Like, and I mean, genuine, oh, did a toddler get a pen? Doodles. And here is Nia, just like blowing me out of the water. And I love it. And I'm just like, oh, this is so awesome. We get an illustrator here too. And then Zara is an inspiration. Have you seen her back catalog? Because I have. Holy cow. I was like doing a little research on Zara. And I was like, she is doing everything they say to do to be a major big deal writer. And I am like, and then when I had originally invited her and she came on the show on our music episode, and I'm like, oh, she's also not stuck up. That's awesome. So yes, I mean, like, I don't mean like in a bad stuck up, but you know how like some people are like, oh, I'm a little too big and important, and I do mean that about Nia as well. If you are not following Nia and Zara, what are you freaking waiting for? They are amazing, and obviously they are doing it right because a lot of people love them and subscribe. So
Can I jump in really quick?
Oh, of course.
I first joined AuthorTube. When I first joined AuthorTube, brand new, been there maybe a couple of days, the very first person who asked me to come on a live was Zara. And I was like, what? Really?
Right.
I was like, no, don't worry. I'm like, I've never live streamed. I don't know what I'm doing. Just like,
I wanted to be more established on AuthorTube before I started a live stream. And I'm like, well, you could guest on mine. Like, you don't have to do anything. Like, I just think
she was like, so amazing. I was like, it was the best time. And so obviously I had a great time because here I am now live streaming. So thank you, Zara, for that.
Yes, good stuff. Yes, I was like, oh my God, Nia and Zara have time for us. We must be doing something right, or they have no idea what they're getting into. I will take it either way.
Oh, I knew. I was like, when you asked me to come back, I was like, yes.
Yeah, I mean, like, I was like, I don't know. She's so busy, but number one, they say the answer is always no till you ask. So go ahead and ask. But I was like, she's going to be too busy. She's like, I did this one time for you. I'm not here for you. Like, and I was so sure. She was like, I'm sorry. I'm really busy because I have a life and an education and everything. And I could absolutely understand that. And instead, Zara's like, oh, here are the dates I'm interested in. I'm like, we will take you for all of them. Yes. Felt like I won the jackpot with both of y'all. So anyhow, yes, take the compliments. I know.
I'm happy to be
I
here.
always tell friends to take the compliment, and then they have this problem, and then I'm like, oh, it's like not that hard. But when it's like multiple compliments at once, I'm like,
It's like,
yes,
out of one, I'll take one, and I'll be happy and I'll be grateful. But like,
well, I hardly it's hard to get to hi Maggie. It's hard to get a chance to actually talk to people even one-on-one. So when I get a chance, it's like, oh, take the compliments. Here we go. Because it's so nice being able to tell people what you really think of them and that you think they're so amazing and impressive and awesome. I feel like not enough compliments are given in this world, genuine compliments.
that's true. Yeah.
Hi, Megan. So that is my theory. I don't take compliments well either. I'm like, oh God, let me hide my face. So I understand. I
had
to learn
a great aunt who was like an amazing illustrator and artist, and she would do doodles, but also her husband was a toy inventor, so she would draw like versions of his stuff, even though he was also obviously doing sketches for what they were, and she would personally draw cards for everyone in the family for like different occasions.
Aww.
And we were like, oh my God, they're amazing. And she could not take a compliment to save her life.
Oh my goodness. That sounds really amazing though.
I feel like people maybe need more experience receiving genuine compliments.
Yeah.
And like, even though I know it makes y'all uncomfortable, I still feel like you need the practice, says me, the Jewish mom, of like, you need the practice. Just like I need the practice too. That's all. But I want to go ahead and say hi to Jules. The dawdling writer is here. Hello, sweetie. Looks like she's working on name generators today. Got a lot of characters to name,
Fantasy name generators is a good one. But they do more than just like people. You can also do places and
they do everything. They've got a bridge name generator over there. A bridge name generator. Like, talk about, oh no, we will just cover everything. I love it. I love that they covered the spread. I actually used them for my Mabel Woke Up Dead This Morning story. The disease I got from the fantasy name generator, they have a disease name generator. And that is where I think I only hit it 5 times before I'm like, yep, that's the one.
Nice.
Oh, and CB is here. Hello, CB. It is lovely that you're here or not here. I'm not sure. CB is sort of... Okay, I was like, is she like Schrodinger's cat today? I'm in no existence. I've had that. Very cool.
Sorry, I live in Manhattan.
Oh,
we got that city vibe going.
I was just like, is everybody okay? Because I live in the country. So if somebody's honking, it's probably because a goat or a cow has wandered out into the suburbs, or yeah, mostly that.
If I randomly mute, it's because of
they're just talking. I've watched Futurama. I understand how this goes. It's how vehicles communicate. So, what should we talk about to start with, since we're not necessarily like totally apparently comfortable with promoting our own stuff? I'm just saying there's links, y'all. There's links. Okay? Just saying. So should we just get into it?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
Does anyone have any hot takes that they would like to get off their chest about anything, any movies, any world building, anything? It's like, here's a great time to just, hi, my name is so-and-so, and I've got shit to say.
I mean, that's true, but now I'm blanking.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, I'm like, I know I have some.
I remembered my hot take. Here, I got my take.
Can I just do a random hot take in the middle of anything else, and I'm like, oh, I've got one.
Hi. I mean, like, I'm like,
I know I have several.
Yeah, like, I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, I probably got at least 8 hot takes in me just for this episode, y'all. If I'm really honest here. So it's like, just as they come, just jump into like, hey, I remember to take. I got one. I just want y'all to know.
Take it away, Nia.
Do you have something ready, or?
Oh, hold on. I've got a kid that just walked in.
Oh, okay.
Shall I start with mine?
Sure.
Yes.
Guaranteed to offend.
Oh, God. Yeah.
I mean, it is a hot take.
Let's start with Black Panther.
Okay.
after watching it again last night or was the night before.
It was over 2 nights.
What I took away this time and really noticed was this. Well, I love the movie. I love Chadwick Boseman.
Oh, I am so sad about Chadwick Boseman,
Yeah.
but also
If your hot take is insulting Chadwick, we're gonna have a
yeah.
No, it's not about, it's not about
no,
Chadwick.
we love our Chadwick Boseman.
It's about the story and how. So this is why they're Nnedi Okorafor last year, the year before, wrote a little piece about Afro versus African futurism. And
So,
Black Panther
Afrofuturism versus African futurism.
And Black Panther, despite being in Africa, about, an African kingdom and all of this, is very Afrofuturism. It is very much about the African American experience and U.S. colonial history versus about a kingdom that was never colonized and has always been free. That is not the story they ended up going with in this movie. This movie is very much a American idea of Africa, not actual Africa.
Yeah.
Like case in point, why are they deciding leadership by physical combat?
I found that so cringy. I thought that was really trying to keep up this idea of Africa is savage, and I'm like, excuse me, why are they not solving it with, a game like chess or Mancala or I don't know. There's plenty of games.
I feel like
sort of intelligence.
I think some of it is because we have Stanley, and now I'm going to Marvel Help because I can't remember the name of the writer.
Oh, it is okay. I'm terrible with names on a good day, so
I know, but anyway, it is based on stuff created by white people. You know what I mean?
It is very much American story.
And we did have oh my God, my brain hates me today. The director, I'm blanking on his name.
Coogler.
Thank you, Coogler. He was especially in the behind the scenes, because with Marvel movies that I always get I always buy it so I can get the behind the scenes.
Yeah,
talking about
that's nice.
Really wanted the American story to reflect what he had done, what he had grown up with, and then his previous work with Fruitvale Station and other things. So I think he nailed that part, and it's not that I think he did the Afrofuturism wrong, but I do think that the story focused so much on Killmonger, his argument, with good reason. It was a legit argument, like some other villains.
But the part is, if you know U.S. history, all Killmonger is talking about is doing what America literally did between 1880 and 1970, or actually 1980. Literally, it's all the same things.
Literally,
and he's going, we won't have the same problems that the U.S. had doing this exact same move.
Except we've already learned it was a terrible idea. It did not work out to either America's benefit or any other country we use this policy on. It was a genuinely destructive policy.
But
and I want to do it again.
I think he knew that. I think that's what he wanted.
I don't think he was trying to burn the world.
Yeah, I don't think he was going oh, here's a policy that worked, but because we're Black, we didn't get to benefit. But if we were in charge, we would make sure it benefited everyone. I think we need to be on top because we've been on the bottom so long.
Yeah, but in time,
take our which is why he's the villain. Whereas at the end, he's oh my God, why am I blanking on Black Panther's character name?
T'Challa.
Okay. Oh my God, my brain really hates me.
It's okay. We all know who we're talking about.
We'll blame it on Monday. We know who you're talking about.
Publicly.
We all know.
But then at the end, T'Challa's okay, we're gonna open up and we're gonna help people. But it's not gonna put anyone superior necessarily. They already have the superior technology, but they're not using that to be okay, we're better than all of you, so we're going to tell everyone what to do. He's entering the UN, doing what his father had started to do before, obviously his father got killed.
That
was so sad.
But it's this, because it's this isolationist versus and colonial, those are the both sides, and it's That's exactly what the U.S. did. We're
Mhm.
literally just going over U.S. history in a condensed form for Wakanda.
Yeah, like U.S. had an isolationist domestic policy.
Yep.
And this what I like to call the Nosy Parker international policy of very much going to get in everyone's business and
We're
tell
going to
them,
save everyone.
But don't
with
tell us what to do.
democracy when
we're going to tell them what to do
neoliberalism.
and how they should totally do it. And when they're like, I don't want to do what you want to do, it doesn't sound like a good idea to me, say, oh, but here's money, food, and weapons.
We're saving you from yourself.
And to show
that whole missionary thing.
Yeah, and the way I can prove that this story is Afrofuturist, not African futurist, you could take this exact entire story, every element of it, and put this into the Navajo reservation in Four Corners, and you wouldn't really have to change anything.
Because
like, there's no African culture involved.
Yeah, there's not any part of Africa's African culture. You know, like Africa has many, many, many countries.
Yeah, it's many countries.
And many more tribes than that.
Well, none of it shows
it
up
had
in
nothing
the story,
to do with any part of African culture.
The annoying thing is that nothing shows up in the story, but like it is there in the costumes because like they did research on the different areas and they kind of put it together the same way that. I mean, different combinations, but like in a similar way that Julie Taymor did for The Lion King on Broadway. Like there is research in it, but like if you're just watching it and you walk away from the story, you're like, oh, that was awesome. And then the moment you think about it, you're like, well, what did it really say?
Was it really awesome? Yeah, like what was it implying?
But the representation was obviously the biggest thing. You know, you had
and it's understandable why everyone was so behind this movie because it's so rare to see, you know, let's be honest, an oppressed group, aka any people of color in, you know, the US, finally getting not just a character, but an entire group of people as the ones in power. It is such a different story to have for once.
Rather than always being the victim tossed on the winds of fate and all the I'm so tired of that kind of narrative. It is so done.
Yes.
So it was refreshing to see anyone, but particularly an entire community of color, not, you know, being mere victims, but instead having self-agency, trying to solve their problems, even if it's not necessarily what I would personally agree with best solutions.
Right.
Or anything. But they're trying to solve their problems. They're not having other people tell them, oh, you need to do this and then do this and that. And then they do it because they're like, well, what choice do I have? You know, I hate that of like, you have choices. You can tell people to go to hell.
They have the solutions. They have the power. Whenever I watch something like this, especially, I wanted to make sure because I knew that there were going to be some issues with it. But my first time watching it, I just want to take it in and enjoy it that. Oh my gosh, here we have a cast, this country. They are owning their stuff. They, you know what I mean? I'm like, that's just so awesome. Yeah. And then the second or third time I can go through and nitpick, oh, you know, that's a little cringe or that's not quite. But the first time through, I'm like, no, I want to enjoy that this is Black Panther and it's Chadwick. And I just wanted to, you know, enjoy seeing all my favorite
And
people.
Chadwick's actually a good ruler for once. Like he's actually someone you like.
Yeah.
You trust him with power.
Yes. Yeah. He is trying to be a compassionate.
Power does not absolutely corrupt him.
Yes.
Although I do want to really quick address Maggie's comment about the Navajo is we do actually get a comment in Wakanda about they recognize this, which is why they hide it so fiercely.
Yeah.
Like, they know the second anyone finds out they have this, they would all come in at once and overwhelm them.
Well, there was
they hide all of this.
In the latest, or maybe not the latest at this point, but one of the most recent Super Carlin Brothers videos, they like kind of go into Avatar: The Last Airbender and why Sokka's like space sword like has extra meaning, and they go over this story from history. And I'm already forgetting whether I think it was an American explorer, but it might have been a British explorer. And basically they're all trying to find the true North Pole, and you know, like a compass wasn't going to get you there because magnetic north is different than like whatever. So he comes across
geographic north.
Yeah, so he comes across these like an Inuit tribe, but they have a special name. And basically he and like a previous explorer who had been there too were like, why on earth are you here? Like, it is freezing. Like, why would you pick this place to settle? And basically they're like, oh, we have this meteorite, which is like a lot stronger than like to make tools and like, you know, normal wood and other metals. And then he takes them and like brings them to, I can't remember which museum, if it's like the Met or the it's probably the National History Museum or whatever. But like he cons them, brings them to like North America and is like, oh, like if you come with me after a year, I'll bring a bunch of like gifts. And obviously he never did. Most of them died like on the voyage back. And I'm just like, oh, look at that. Like,
Yeah.
Colonizing power took a natural resource away from a group of people.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yep.
Absolutely.
But that's why that part is believable about Wakanda pretending to be just, you know, a desolate place of farmers.
Oh yeah,
who
that
barely
absolutely
get
makes
by.
sense.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's true to history, you know, because we can actually look and see, look what happened to the resources in Africa. You know, when they got colonized, Africa should be extremely wealthy, or the different varying countries.
1,000 years ago,
Africa,
it
like
was
Africa
the
is
wealthiest
one-
place on earth.
It was.
The diamonds alone, and look what's happened, you know? So yeah, it's like when you go through it, you think that makes perfect sense, because either everybody who wanted that resource would converge on them to take them over and colonize them, or bribery and all kinds of, you know, fake alliances.
Yeah,
it would just be a mess. Be a
things.
mess. So yeah, just keep it to
Very
yourself.
believable.
Well,
Yeah.
like it could be like South Africa, where it's like not only are they colonized once, they're colonized by multiple people, and every single time it happens, they get like, you know, the people there get slapped with more rules, while the, you know, different groups of white colonizers like fight over what they want without giving
their resources.
like the people.
I mean, if we're going to talk about colonizing, there's always the Philippines. Like, yes, any passing armada, you know, just. But no, you're absolutely right. I understand the idea of Wakanda's isolationist policy from 100 years ago. That absolutely made sense. The concern I had even about it, though, was when there is a lack of compassion in the policy, or at least the way it is actually run, what we tend to see in any government, not just, you know, America, is it's destructive. A lack of compassion means that any policy, no matter how well-intentioned it may have originally been, is destructive. And what sometimes, frankly, drives me nuts about comic books is you can do anything in a fantasy world. Why are you picking worse choices rather than, how about some good ones? What's wrong with that? Once in a while, just have like working good ones, rather than it always having to be, oh, no, everyone has to have a worse policy than America. Really? Really? Is that how we want to run this?
But they were also pro-American thing. You know, like that's where comic books came from. So like
Yeah.
to lift more.
Yeah. Are you ready for another hot take?
Okay.
Yes, I'm ready. These are good, Tom. Let's go.
All right. So
yeah.
I can't find any references anymore. Gloria's look, she can't find references anymore.
I'm like, is this a different universe? We cannot find references to this. And I'm like, surely we did not both imagine it. But
So right now it's just called headcanon,
yes.
an alternate universe. But in my head, Zamunda and Wakanda are literally
The
sister
queens
nations.
are sisters. Well, the actual queens. Leon from Zamunda, and I'm blanking on T'Challa's mother, but that they are actually sisters. That was what I swear we read an article about this, but I cannot find any reference now to it. So I'm sorry, y'all. Let's just say different universe, different Marvel.
And
So so is it that when
Ramonda
the one was done?
is his mother.
Wait, what?
Ramonda is the name of his mother.
Is T'Challa's mother.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that she is sisters with Aeolian.
Yeah, Aeolian
From-
is the older sister. And I could have sworn there was something from years ago. I want to say the late 90s in the comic books making a reference to Coming to America, which as kids who grew up watching the original Coming to America movie, we were like, yeah, this is cool. This is awesome. There's because I mean, I grew up watching John Landis movies and I loved Eddie Murphy. My parents actually let me watch Delirious as a kid, the stand-up special, which to this day I'm like, what was wrong with my parents? But yeah.
I think my parents had that. Was it the one where Eddie Murphy was in the red leather?
Oh
yeah.
God.
Oh my God, my parents had that.
That jacket was
I remember sneaking and watching that when I was little.
Yes, they rented it and they let me watch it. Or like else one of my parents may have like said, hey, we're going to bed. If you wanted to watch something, we don't care. Kind of just keep it low, kind of we would never as your parents allow you to watch something like this with cursing.
Yeah, we weren't allowed to watch.
If we were asleep.
But I remember my parents had that. And I remember they were gone. I don't know where they were, but we're like, let's put it in the little VCR.
Exactly. But yeah,
we weren't supposed to watch it.
So when we were young, let's say middle school-ish ages, we thought that Wakanda was essentially sister nations with Zamunda from the original Coming to America movie, and that the queens were sisters. And so we always, as we were young, used to imagine like, oh, they must like get together for holidays, and how cool is it? Because like it kind of made sense that royalty like socializes with each other. It's not just within your country. This is it. The same people forever. That you get to get out of your country from time to time to at least party on your continent.
Yeah, that actually would be cool. Now I want to find the reference. I keep checking because now I'm like,
I'm searching it and I can't find anything. I can barely find anything on Wikipedia. Wikipedia has like a page on like every minor character, and there's like a paragraph.
That's my conspiracy theory. I'm sorry.
This leads to in our minds, Black Panther and Coming to America, and because it's John Landis, Trading Places, all exist in the same universe. Technically, actually, so does an American Werewolf in London, which just fits with Marvel being there's always ghosts and weird stuff going on.
It does fit,
but it's like, all right, but wait, there's Eddie Murphy in 2 movies. What's going on? Well, you hear James Earl Jones reference about he too sowed his royal oats.
This is Tom's headcanon about this. Like, we did not ever see this in print, but this is...
That's why I like it.
I think it's valid headcanon, though.
You should write a giant fanfic. I'm like...
Yep.
And which means that, Billy Ray in Trading Places is, another lost prince, because we see this storyline come up in the sequel, Coming to America, with Lavelle's, with Eddie Murphy having, had a kid when the first, unknowingly in the first movie when he came to America. And then we also see in Black Panther where they left, I wish I could remember the character's regular name instead of calling him Killmonger all the time.
I know, it feels so wrong to call a child Killmonger because, the character was a child when he was abandoned in Oakland.
Starts with an E.
But I always say either Michael B. Jordan or Killmonger.
Yes.
Bad.
But it's that but that both of these countries keep abandoning children their citizens. In America, what in the world is up with this?
Eric Stevens, and then he takes on the name Eric Killmonger, and then obviously his Wakanda name is N'Jaka.
I have to be honest, Eric just does not seem like an appropriate name for this character. Like, it's like, that is so... No.
He changes it from E-R-I-C to E-R-I-K when he adds Killmonger.
I mean, come on.
It's still a little generic for such a character.
They couldn't give him everything. He's already the best Marvel villain aside from...
I mean, don't we all want to see a Killmonger movie?
But, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't we?
Yeah.
But
there's so much
But that was my other thing is why do they keep leaving these people, especially in America, and they don't seem to have a concern of, they know they're there. They know, that
Like there's
Our country's
Akeem
great,
had a
and
kid
America
well.
has its issues with Black young men. Why are we leaving our future potential prince, possibly, over there where his life's not going to be that great?
Why are they not reclaiming their, essentially lost children? Why are they not reclaiming lost citizens? Like, wouldn't that be part of that whole community build? I don't like, let me think how to say it. It seems so strange that cultures that have a very, heart forward, community forward culture would feel like the moment you leave the border, we're not really, you can be from our country, but we're not really caring about you. Like, it seems so strange for Zamunda and Wakanda to have these kind of attitudes when within their country borders, they seem to have almost, if anything, the opposite attitude about their citizens.
And so we need conflict in plots. So it's like the opposite of plot armor for these poor kids who are like left.
Yeah, like give us reason.
By virtue of the plot, you have to be abandoned.
It's very strange and frankly, I find it disarming.
I felt like it was continuing this whole, the Afro-American experience.
Well, it's
part of we need kids without fathers.
There was this whole
That's what I think.
About this terrible, ugly propaganda of Black men don't make good fathers. I mean, I grew up hearing it, and yet I grew up in the 80s in Mississippi. I literally saw the opposite. Like, it was because when I was growing up in the 80s in Mississippi, my mother said I wanted to join the Girl Scouts when I was like 7 or 8. And she said, there's only 2 Girl Scout troops taking new girls. And the options, she went to both of them. She's like, one of them is a KKK. You're not going to that one. So the only other option is there's another troop that's part of a Black church, and they already have 28 Black girls. So it's either that or nothing. So that's what I joined. And so I was surrounded by all these African-American dads, like for like my entire childhood. And I'm like, oh no, they're the dads who are like at the sleepover going, here's the keys to my car. Go to the trunk and everybody can get a Coke, but don't tell your mother. I'll bring the cups of ice to the dead. Like that was my experience with African-American fathers, was very much attentive and involved in their children's lives versus, I go out into the world and hear this Jim Crow shit. And so to me, it's like, oh, wait, every time with this whole abandoning their children in America, I'm like, why does this ring of Jim Crow? Why are we still perpetuating this? It's gross and cringy.
Yeah.
And also that even gets back to with T'Challa and T'Chaka, his dad, it kind of becomes obvious, as well as actually in Coming to America, between Akeem and I can't remember the James Earl Jones father, the name.
Joffrey.
That's right, Joffrey. Of both of these princes, really it seems like were not raised by their fathers. They have such very different views that their fathers do not recognize in them, which means they don't talk that much.
In the first Coming to America movie, toward the very beginning, we have a breakfast scene with the king, queen, and Prince Akeem. And at a certain point, Akeem comes up to sit by his parents, or at least to see them up close, because, they're along this long table. And King Joffer is like, when did you get a mustache? And the queen says, he's had it for over a year. Like, which really implies like he's been spending time with his mother plenty, which, of course, that's his mother. He's 21. Versus his father has not noticed in a year he has a very obvious mustache. What? So again, that does imply that he's, the king is not spending much or any time in a year with his son.
The only attentive king father to like his son Prince that I can think of, and is really sad, is the Lion King. Like that's
I was gonna say the exact same thing.
Well, that's it. And then he gets murdered. So it's like obviously
that's why he had to kill that.
Dad's gotta go.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I just say
you had Eric's father before he gets
right, who was an attentive father.
Yeah.
Because we see that in the flashback dream sequence after he takes the heart-shaped herb and, has this dream sequence that's sort of like a memory of a conversation with his father. Yeah. And it's a very loving, oh my God, the man.
But even in the start, like when you see the, like, the animation of like how the meteorite like fell to Wakanda and all that.
Yeah.
Like he's asked, like young Eric is asking his dad to tell him the story again, which implies that at the very least this is like
a bedtime
a
story.
type of like bedtime story.
Yes.
And that means he has to have been there multiple times to tell him
Yes.
his story, which means he's not like off just doing the like, gun running that he's, you know, trying to do to like, you know, arm the otherwise like defenseless Black people in his neighborhood when he knows like, oh, I can help them. Like, here's guns, you know, until I can get the vibranium, and then he gets caught.
Yeah. But yeah. But this is, for me, this is like not unusual because we see this so much. Well, like if you're Black, you'll notice that a lot of times people, and I think it perpetuates something that people actually think that that's how Black families in America are, because that's what they keep saying over and over and over and over in media, is that, oh, all moms are all baby mamas and the dads just aren't there unless they want to be there for a minute and then they're gone, or they're just not there at all. So media perpetuates a lot of these things, and it's I think it's just hard to get from, even in something like Wakanda. It's hard to get away from that that we hate so much.
I expected better from such a large production that surely was workshopping their story hardcore. You know,
versus like, what we saw in Pixar's Soul.
Oh, I love the cultural trust they used in Pixar's Soul.
Yeah.
I felt it was like, yes, this reflects every part of like familial interaction, everything that I grew up seeing and that I see in my friends' lives, and like the aunties and everything of like, yes, it absolutely rang true to my experience that I've witnessed and had so much compassion in there. But I really do see that as having to do by using a cultural trust with like, I think at least 15 people on there on the board of the cultural trust. Like it was more than like 3 people.
I know.
They can be over there with their little office. No, it was like a lot of people involved.
But I feel like even with, you know, obviously very different genre, but like Crazy Rich Asians, which is, you know, my version, like as an Asian person where like it's the whole cast and like they're making their own decisions aside from like that really racist incident, like in the prologue kind of when they like are like, oh, we can't like take you, like, and then she buys the freaking hotel and it's like, can you take me now? And like, you know, like it was written by an Asian guy, all Asian cast, Asian director, and there are still things in there where I'm like, yes, like that might be true, like for a lot of people. I'm not saying that like they necessarily put falsehoods in there, but like it does perpetuate certain ideas that like I could do without getting extra screen time.
Yeah, I that was why I felt a little cringy about Crazy Rich Asians. I mean, it was like, but do we need that right now? We could tell a fun story without some of the cringier bits, you know, that are perpetuating
more stereotypes.
With more cringe
now. The book is more cringy.
Oh yeah, yes. That was actually my experience with the book. I worked at the public library. I had convinced the public library to order this before we even knew it was going to be a bestseller. I was like, oh, that reminds me of when I lived in the Philippines. Yes, I need to read this. And then when it came in, and I did not make it through the whole book because I just was like, I'm not having a good time.
I think the movie made the right choice on cutting the side plots that they did.
Yeah,
I mean, like
if you had read the books, you could be like, "Oh, I recognize that," but like, you don't need.
Yeah,
but like, because I could say, and I have told other people with all honesty, I lived in Singapore for about 2 months, stayed with locals and everything, and just had a nice fun time. But I can say with absolute certainty, Singapore is one of the most racist places I've ever been on Earth. I have never seen that much just blatant racism. Like it makes Mississippi look just so egalitarian.
It was weird. Yeah, it was awkward.
And it's a rest of the world really needs to address this whole racism thing. It's not only existing where people actually talk about it.
Oh yeah, no. Like China
Yeah.
is really racist too.
Yeah.
Oof, that's
Yeah, no, you're
But
right.
so I mean, yeah, say why don't and so like that was one of the things we wanted to talk about with using sort of Black Panther as a springboard about Afrofuture and African futurism is
And
it's
world
your
building
story.
is part of that.
It's your world if that you're writing it. Why instead of going with the oh no, this is how it's always been, this is how it'll always be, why don't you make a better place? Give people some better options.
You
Make
can have
more
plenty of conflict while, yes, having functional governments that don't exercise destructive international or domestic policies. It is possible to have plenty of
Yeah.
excellent conflict stories, because let's be honest, conflict will move a plot forward, or can.
conflict is necessary for plot.
Yeah.
But you can have conflict in the most functional family, in the most functional government. You can still have plenty of conflict that feels authentic and organic. It is not required to only have dysfunction. I feel like sometimes people get into a glorifying of the dysfunction, and I know that can be fun, but we're just like I'm getting tired of,
Yeah, I was
all
gonna
of
say it stops being
destructiveness.
fun when you notice that certain groups are always the target of certain negativity. It's like it gets so old.
It does.
Yeah.
And it's like I was thinking sometimes when I understand that sometimes we need to see the struggles and that's okay and there's a time and a place for it and that's perfectly fine, but I don't want to see that every single time. Sometimes can like Black people, Asian people, Latino people, there's a lot of joy. We're enjoying our lives. Can we read and watch?
When you look at any of the
great and
holidays
fun
that any culture has, like the amount of celebrations that like Chinese people do at multiple times a year, and like other cultures, like
yeah, and there's
man.
other conflicts. The conflict doesn't always have to be racism. Like, oh, we're hit with it all the time. Can
I know.
Give us something else.
Give me something different. Come on.
also give me some agency.
Yes.
That's the other problem Gloria and I really had with that first episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier of
No, I haven't watched it.
I was gonna say I haven't watched it either.
Don't worry, this doesn't spoil anything.
Okay.
Perfect.
No,
I haven't
this doesn't
started
spoil
it
anything
yet because I was like in school mode and I was like,
Yeah.
if I start watching
it's just this is a true just like what is this BS? Who wrote this? And everyone says it. It's
not just us going, are you trying to tell me? I'm like, oh, Tom had to listen to a
which is
hour rant.
Sam goes back home. His sister needs a loan if they're going to keep both the boat and the business as well as their house.
And again, this is not a spoiler. This really doesn't have hardly anything to do with the whole rest of the season.
They go to one bank, and the guy just says,
just the one.
And in town, the guy just says, nope, you can't get it. Doesn't give any real reasons.
Let alone a PowerPoint presentation, which is what they gave me when they turned my business down for a loan, was because they said, because you're a woman, and this was like literally 15, 18 years ago, because you're a woman, we are required to like actually give you a bulleted PowerPoint presentation about what.
Because you're a woman, we have to give you legit reasons.
You know I live in Mississippi, right? Okay.
They have to really explain it.
I know.
They said it's true. Women and minority businesses, when they apply for loans, they have to do this in order to satisfy, I don't know, FCC.
Non-discrimination.
Yeah.
We're not discriminating against you, so look at our reasons.
We're not sexist.
But they were. It was,
no, I know they. Yeah.
Welcome to systemic sexism. Anyway, I still had a successful. Actually, had two businesses at the time. I had a comic book shop and a video rental store, but like, and they were the ones who had talked me into applying because they needed so many minorities to apply for loans every year in order to, so I did
still turn them down.
They suckered me in, and I didn't know that was what I thought they had offered. They'd asked me to apply for a loan in good faith, and it was not in good faith. So I learned that the hard way the one time, and I have not fallen for this trick anymore. But nevertheless, after when they turned me down, they're like, because you are a minority, you're a woman-owned business, we have to give you all of these. These are required. Because I'm like, I know you turned me down. Why are you still trying to like tell me why you turned me down? This is like the worst breakup ever. And I literally said that to my loan officer. I'm like, this is worse than any breakup I have ever had.
Not as bad as mine. It was over text and it lasted 2 hours.
Uh,
Yeah.
About as long as this
you
movie
can
went,
stop now.
like shows. And I was like, so my point was simply when I was like, are you trying to tell me that they turned down a minority-owned business and did not have any kind of bulleted list or PowerPoint presentation to explain, we swear this isn't racism? Because I got one, and they even cited the law, that required.
And there's also part where are you showing there's only one bank in this entire town? Because it's the bank that the business that Sam's sister's fishing business is in. That's where they deposit all their money. Because Glory, what happened after that bank turned you down for the loan?
I closed my business account with them, and I went over to another bank and said, hi, so-and-so just asked me to apply for a loan and then turned me down. Here's the paperwork of them turning me down. I'd like to open up an account, and is there any way you could offer me some credit? And they were like, oh, we would be happy to work with you and take all your money. Thank you very much. And they gave me a line of credit immediately, just because I got turned down by the other bank.
But this scene at the beginning of Falcon and Winter Soldier is such a middle class white male,
interpretation,
imagination.
It was very obvious to me the whole time because I've what are we 4 episodes in now to the series? Yeah. It is so obvious to me that they did not use any kind of cultural trust in order to make sure that the experiences they are trying to portray with these characters are authentic and fact-based rather than terrible perpetuating stereotypes that are just, they run false. Hence that loan scene is in no way accurate for what people would be experiencing, let alone their reaction, of Sam and his sister, Sarah, they're just like, oh, well, we're just victims. We don't, I guess that instead of, oh, we are taking the money out now and we will drive to the next town and open up a new account. That would be agency, right? Versus, no, they're just victims. They took their little
take it.
Their legs
We're
and
just going to close the business.
Sam, created, the first, version of it, to become Falcon. He's not someone who just takes it lying down.
Right. I mean, he's a veteran. He is a veteran. He worked for the VA afterwards. This man has loan options, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And there are even more laws protecting veterans when they apply for loans. With any bank, not just with military banks or, base banks, or credit unions. There are even more laws protecting veterans. And I'm like, there's nothing about being a veteran or an African American in this first episode. This is so infuriating.
I feel like
that's disappointing.
I feel like sometimes stories when they're featuring loosely. I use that loosely. Where they feature minorities, and sometimes they're like, oh, well, we don't want to and they are like, oh, we're not going to make it all about the trauma of racism we complain about. But then they do the stupid colorblind type of
yeah, it's no,
no. There are racist aspects of life that would influence this. You can acknowledge that would still happen without making the entire story about racism.
Thank you.
Yes, this is what is
the
so
story is still about what the story is about, but these things do happen. So you can point out, it's okay to point out that this happened. But then we're still going to move along with the rest of the story. Don't just ignore it, because then it's weird. It's
because this whole scene, then all Glory and I are talking about for a while afterwards is, wait a minute. So you're telling me Sam Wilson worked for Tony Stark, a billionaire, without ever being employed by him, being put on payroll or anything?
I mean, actually, I could see Tony doing that, but
that Sam Wilson did it, and that none of his friends had an intervention. Even my friends, even my white friends, would have been like, "Glory, stop working for a white male billionaire for free." They're like, "I understand you like playing with the equipment, but for free." And I'm like, even my friends who were like, I understand you're living your dream, but you have to get paid, Glory. Otherwise, you're just like somebody that he says you're not worth paying for. This man has so much money. And I would have been like, yeah, all right, fair. I mean, like Scott Couch would have sat me down like a white man and would have been like, no, Glory, you have to get paid or you have to move on. You cannot do this forever. Like 3 weeks, we're done. You can't keep working for him for free. And I would be like, fair. Also, what do you mean Sam Wilson does not have Pepper Potts' cell phone number? What do you mean he cannot just call her up and go, hey, I need a banker? Are you trying to tell me they spent all this time working together?
They could have just dropped it like in a check, you know, like or wire transfer. She wouldn't have even she could have been on Tony Jet's star. Like,
well, I mean, I understand the whole. I don't want a handout for my friend. I don't want a loan. I get that. I get that some people have that kind of
offer,
right?
But if it's to save his sister, you could have him be like. Have that dilemma of like, do I take the handout? Which is like a handout. Granted, it's not going to hurt the person giving the handout, so it's not like.
I totally agree. As well as like
save the family
house. I know.
I agree. I haven't even watched the show yet.
You just screams of so much privileged writing, and it's just like. So again. We came loaded for this episode, and this is frankly only the start of us talking. This episode is merely the start of us talking about Afrofuturism, African futurism, and also just world building in general, because we are so tired of everybody building the same damn world.
And
why is every fantasy world Europe in the Middle Ages, and it's not even accurate to the Middle Ages? It's just like this weird whitewashed version, and I'm like, okay, we got to stop all this, y'all. It's not okay. We can do better.
Like, the thing is I think we have Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, and some people go for one or over the other, and other people like mix it. But like that's it. Like no one really comes up with anything new. Although I do have to say, I haven't read it yet, so I can't vouch for how good it is. But A River of Royal Blood is about two African princesses, and they both have different powers, and they're fighting for the throne. And because at first they were like, like inseparable, and then something happens, and then it's like they go at odds. And the cover for one, the first cover of the first book was like the two of them facing off, and like they both look like warriors, and it's super fierce, and you're like, I don't know which one I'm voting for yet, but they're both really cool. But then like they redid the covers, I think, or maybe it's for the paperbacks, where like the first book and the sequel have each different sister on the cover. And like that, I read the description, and I was like, it's not going to be about them like being black, but like they are black, and like, but it's about a fantasy world where it's like there's actual stuff. And I was like, so excited. Like, it's not even like Children of Blood and Bone type of thing, which had a lot. Yeah.
There's the link. So if anybody wants to, let me know how it goes. Yeah. Okay. While we're here, how about we do a bio break? 10-minute bio break. So everybody can get snacks, maybe hydrate or dehydrate. And maybe walk if you haven't taken a little, stretch the legs, maybe move the hips a little. I don't know. Do your thing, stare at the ceiling. I don't know. Do things. Okay. And then when we come back, meditate. Sure.
Yeah.
And then when we come back,
calm down a little.
Get your heart rate.
Yeah.
Fair. Okay.
So I was about to go on one of my hot takes, which is not a hot take. It's a pet peeve that a lot of people have.
I want to hear it though.
I want to hear it. Yeah. No. When we come back, I want to hear.
It's not a hot take. A lot of us have been saying it. We're just waiting for more people.
Okay, you can say your chilling take. Okay. I still want to hear
it's more of a rant, and we're just waiting for more people to stop making all fantasy worlds Tolkien and C.S. Lewis. That's
Absolutely. I'm so sick of the same old. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always had. And frankly, I'm bored with that crap. Let's move to new stuff. So over it. I mean, anyway. Okay, so we're going to do a break, and then we'll see y'all back here in approximately 10 minutes, because first, I'm going to play Tom's little interstitial that he made for this. Beepity beep beep. Beepity beep. Beep beep beep. Beepity beep. Something.
That works.
And we're back.
I feel so hydrated. That was
good. I'm glad.
I got some writing done during that break.
Nice.
You being all productive.
Yeah, did you see CB in the comments? Holy cow.
I know, that's
What?
awesome.
I haven't read the comments at all. I just sat back down.
There.
Got like
82,586 words.
I just
What the?
20,000 in my novel.
I know.
She's amazing. Yesterday.
Jesus.
She is such an inspiration to me.
Yeah.
I know.
Of like, yeah, just keep plugging away, you know?
Yeah.
One day.
I hydrated. The sound of me and my grandmother used to the sound of my people. Although she used to do it like I don't know if anybody remembers this old cartoon called The Critic with Jay Sherman. And that's how old I am. I think it was from the 90s. And I
was born in 97. There are a lot of things before my time that I know.
Not necessary to say such like ugly things to me.
Yeah, to remind me that I've got a kid your age. Thanks, Sarah.
Sorry.
That's fine.
I wasn't gonna out you on the stream. But
no, myself. I'm turning 42 in May. I'm old.
I turned 24, so you just flip the numbers. If you're dyslexic, we're the same age.
There we go.
Sorry, that could have been offensive.
No, I mean
dyslexic people, but I mix up numbers all the freaking time, so I have dyscalculia.
I do.
Yeah, I actually am dyslexic, and it's like names, number, you know. That's why I write everything down, because even then I will misread it anyway.
She literally earlier today, wasn't it? Was double checking the spelling of Eddie Murphy just to make sure, because of even if I say it out loud to her, there's still a chance she may mistype it and not realize.
He reads each letter out loud to me. There's no guarantee I will actually type the right letter, because it'll still look right to me, so I won't catch it. And I know this is true from the video store days. We had one of those lighted signs, that you can change the letters on. Yeah. They have those tracks.
Light box.
And what was it, like a whole month it said Merry Christmas?
Mm-hmm.
With the C-A, no R. It was Christmas, but no R. Do you know, we were on a major highway, like one of the major highways that go through Mississippi. Not a single person told me for 3.5 weeks out of the month of December that it was misspelled. I noticed it like 2 or 3 days before Christmas and was like, no.
Wow.
No. I was so embarrassed. And then I kept telling like the customers, our loyal customers, like for a week, like, I'm so sorry about misspelling. I hope nobody thinks I was trying. This was at the beginning of the unveiling of the war on Christmas, y'all. So, and I mean, we're in the middle of Nowheresville, Mississippi. That was where the video store was. It was like literally by a state park, off the side of a highway, a little south of a military base. Like it was, we're backwoods. And I told every loyal customer came in that week, to rent Christmas movies and stuff. Like, I'm so sorry about misspelling it. I'm dyslexic. I didn't mean to be rude. Everybody was like, you misspelled it? I didn't even notice. So apparently there's a lot of dyslexia. I'm fine with that.
Well, here's the thing is that scientifically, and I don't know why, if you have the first letter and the last letter of a word in the correct spots and like enough letters in the middle, even if they're in the wrong order, your brain reads correctly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I didn't know I had any dyslexia for years. I had no idea. I remember when I was a little kid, the first thing I ever saw about it was on The Cosby Show, quite literally. And I thought, oh, well, I don't think I have that because I don't have a problem reading. Mm-hmm. So I had no idea I had been doing this for years. I notice it now when I'm reading when I do a live and I have to read things that are moving. I'm like, that's a really hard thing. So I just kind of stumble over words and I mix the words up, get them out of order all the time. But I'm like, oh, people will just forgive me. But numbers, when you have to do the packages, remember when you used to have to write down the tracking numbers
Oh God.
of I'm like, I couldn't get a tracking number in the right order to save my.
I felt like I was trying to code break. What was the number supposed to be? Like, well, let me try flipping the 6 and the 9. Maybe that's what I did, and
Yeah.
on and on.
And once I get it wrong, my brain will not fix it. Even if you say it right, once I have it wrong, I will keep doing it wrong, the wrong way. I'm like, I know it's 0C, but I keep putting C0. Why is my brain like this?
Yep. Exactly. I cannot read in the car in a moving vehicle because it's moving. Even with the dyslexia font, I still can't. It's just too exhausting. I can only work so hard at it, and then it's like, done. I'm done. Thankfully, we have audiobooks, so
yes.
I want to get into audiobooks because I think I'd be able to read faster because like I use my eyes all the time, obviously, because like I'm writing and then I have school and it's just like I used to be able to stare at a screen for forever and now like I can't and I can't
stare at a screen for forever.
No. It's like my eyes are like I was like I don't want to spend more time reading an ebook, but I'm not someone who buys paperbacks with the knowledge of like, I'll donate them because I never get around to donating them. So I buy books in ebook form, read it, and then if I really like it or if like it had a really pretty cover and I really liked it, then I'll be like, I'll get like the paperback.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Here's my audiobook pitch.
I loved it.
I understand that you're like, I could read faster, and you probably could, but can you read as fast while vacuuming or washing dishes?
No. That's what I'm saying.
That is the beauty of audiobooks.
No reason I haven't gotten into it yet, except I haven't gotten into it.
I have, I hate chores. You just don't know. I do not have the dopamine for chores, so I have to make it a treat. And, a picture of margaritas is not quite enough of a treat. So the audiobook at the same time helps. Like, I will get
and
this
also, Zara, if you are one of those types who needs everything done quicker, technology has come really far where you can
everything on like 2 times speed.
Yeah, you can put it on double speed without it going high pitch or anything.
I listen to stuff double speed if it's already made for like listen only. So like podcasts and like audiobooks. And sometimes I had to listen to a 48-minute long lecture for my class that's later tonight. It was a presentation actually. It was on YouTube. And the guy was talking like not the slowest I've ever heard someone talk, but I was like, I bet you I can speed this up and it'll still sound normal to me. And I put him at 2 times speed and he still sounded normal to me because I'm used to my family speaking really fast. Right. Whereas some people, they're like, you can understand that? And I'm like, yeah. So I was like, oh, thank goodness.
I had going to college years ago. I had one teacher who was, I can't remember, my second period teacher in college. She had these pauses. I don't know why, but she had this particular way of pausing between sentences that sucked the consciousness from your brain. It was just long enough for you to lose attention and to drop a step in consciousness each time she'd pause. So by the end of an hour, I'm just like,
no.
I didn't think about it as a sleep aid till after I finished that class and passed it. And I never was able to get a microphone to a recorder to my friend who was taking the class to record it. Because really, she had the best, just you would fall asleep. If you were tired at all, you were going to pass out.
Oh, wow.
I've had a couple professors like that. I'm like, no, I'm not going to make it. I don't know how I'm just going to have to sit there and stab my leg the whole time. Stay awake.
Oh.
Because often with other professors, I just take notes and that would help keep me awake. Oh no, there's a couple that I'm like, why are you so slow? I'm not going to make it. I have a couple times I have switched classes, same class, but different instructor. Cause no, not going to make it.
Yeah. Haven't we all felt that with the, what was it? The sloth in Anatopia? What was it?
Zootopia.
Zootopia, yep.
Yes.
Haven't we all felt that?
Oh my God, where you're just like, say it.
Well, you know what's even worse is that certain people like gift it to the point like of the slow part, but never got to the point where it started. And like,
you wait for it?
I got tricked by that. Where like I was like, oh, it's gonna, and then I realized it was a GIF, and I was like, God damn it.
I love it.
Oh, yeah, so do I. It's hilarious.
So I thought for
Mia, now
second.
Maggie had a name for it. Where was Maggie?
Dyspraxia?
No,
No,
Maggie.
CB.
When we return, present the peeve.
Oh yeah.
We have not forgotten Mia.
Yeah, no, that is it. I just what wasn't it about? Probably the one about the fantasy novels never.
Yeah, C.S. Lewis.
Other places.
Elves are elves.
Make something
Stop
else.
having elves.
Yeah, I like elves, but elves don't always have to be the same. I like fairies. I like all of the things. Dragons are my favorite.
I think fairies have been done in enough different ways that I'm not like fairies, but there are definitely ways that fairies could be done and have not been done yet.
Yeah,
they're also all white.
Like versus like the dark elves, and I'm like, they're not African American. Stop doing this. It's not cool.
Yeah.
Right, but also though, if you made the dark elves black and they were the only black characters, that would also be like a
yeah. I don't like anything like that. Like for me, oh gosh, I had another one, man.
Go for it. Come on, let's hear it.
I mean, I love so bad. I love the Lord of the Rings. Obviously, I have like all my collectors.
I had not noticed.
I do, but man,
do you prefer the extended 12-hour cut?
Yeah, the more the merrier. No, but man, it's so disappointing. I can't express the level of disappointing it is that the only characters that you see that are even with any color are it's like why? Yeah. It's like that and it's like we were already in what, the 90s? Was it the 90s when that was done?
It was starting it started to be filmed in like 98 or 99. It started filming.
Yeah. It's like at that point
it didn't come out until 2001, but he filmed all of it.
When they started. Yeah. It's like at that point you couldn't. I understand when he wrote it, but by the time you're making it, you really can't imagine elves of a different color or anyone of a different color at all. It's so disappointing. It's like it's like you still want to enjoy it because it's amazing, and it's one of the films that has held up because I've tried to go back and watch some things. I've tried to go back and watch like Star Wars, the old ones. I used to love it, but it's like some of it's just hard to watch because it's so outdated. But it's one that holds up really well, and it's just kind of sad that even in the late 90s, early 2000s, that they couldn't think far enough out the box that you can actually, if you can imagine all of these other creatures, but you can't imagine that a black or brown person would be in your fantasy.
Yeah,
it's incredibly disappointing, and it takes a little bit of the joy out of it.
That the racism is baked in, rather than it's just a window dressing. That you can just switch out. You don't always have to have it racist. You could like mix it up, but they're like, no, it's baked in.
We must be,
it's part of the genre. It's like, we know that's what one of the things that sucks about the genre.
Yeah, right. It's not a good thing about it,
and that's what we wanted to actually talk about for this section between this and now the next bio break. Tom
is all right. So, what are the things we can take away to improve our writing from these stories? This is usually, so far it seems like we have this, the rhythm we have for this show is the first hour is just the fun and chat and let's just, go over all the little stuff. The second hour is, all right, how do we use this as storytellers? And then third hour is, all right, what's the rest of our hot takes and rants we've always wanted to tell people, but we haven't had a chance and there's no conventions right now.
And it doesn't have to be connected specifically. It's just like
order. I feel like we jumbled the order. Also, I'm gonna have to duck out like in an hour at 6:30.
And that
And
was
that's what
why
we
we
want
were
to
like,
get in, like the storytelling part as well.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, because it's like we want Zara to definitely like be here for this part. So
so like, one thing that like I talked with Gloria a couple times. She's like, "How does this relate to storytelling, though?" Is Coming to America? John Landis, the first one. John Landis is directing it, and one of the things he kind of had been working on throughout his movies, and he really seemed to be at his best in Coming to America doing, is he sets scenes by doing these little quick 1 second, even half-second close-ups on one person's face to show you the emotion of the room.
mm-hmm.
And what it does is then you don't have to question, all right, what is this room's vibe at the time for each scene? You know already, because you're shown someone's expression that you can now mimic and take in and go, all right, this is how I view the scene. And it's like, all right, but how do we use a storyteller? It's like, well, make sure you set the scene at the beginning of each of these so so your reader knows what they're getting into. Like, if your character is nervous, your POV character, they're going to notice more danger and trying to make light jokes about things to not feel as in danger, but they'll notice what all the sharp things in the room are. They'll notice, what are the sharp things on the person they're talking to. But if you are chill, if you are relaxed, if you're having a day at the spa, you notice people in the biggest brushstrokes. And, and not much else to them.
Well, and also like what I was reminded of was, so when I was like in middle school, my mother used to bribe me to read classic novels. Money, movies. She just bribed me any which way. She wanted me to read all the classics. And so I read a lot of Victorian era novels, both American and British Victorian era.
So overrated.
They're so long and paid by the word, it goes on forever. So that's again why she had to bribe me, because no, you cannot pay me to read Dickens. So will not pay me enough. That was what I learned. It was like she was like, what about Great Expectations? I'm like, there's literally not enough money. You don't have it, Mom. So, but nevertheless, what I did notice in the majority of these novels is back then they would tell you when a character walks into a room and there's already other people there. One of the things I would read within the first paragraph or two is pretty much a survey of everybody's facial expressions with adjectives. Her querulous expression. And I'm like, Mom, what's querulous? She's like, let's go find it in a dictionary. And made me go to every dictionary in the house. And then we had to go to the library. And I had to go through every dictionary at the library. And it wasn't there. And I had to tell the head librarian. And they had to go find the big dictionary so I could find out. Young people.
I only had a big dictionary in my home.
Our dictionary
with the podium.
My mom, where it's like you need to have a big dictionary.
No. Like the big dictionary, like had its own podium. It had its own corner of the library. And that was the one that had querulous in it, so I could know what this meant. Which I have to be honest was like, oh, I know that face. What a bee. But they would do this all the time. I mean, it was like every time the scene changed, again, it's people, they would describe it in the first two paragraphs, everybody's facial expressions and body language as was pertinent. She languidly lounged on the rocks by the creek, and so on, to set the mood for the scene that's about to unfold. It's very useful, but it's not like this has never been done before. In fact, this used to be done all the time. Oh, you have no idea what a big dictionary looks like. I'm so sorry to break your heart here.
No. This is the one that I have. My mom has a bigger one, and my grandma had a huge one.
Yes, the huge one with its own furniture to sit on because it was so enormous and heavy.
I refused to have a bigger one because I was like, I don't need like every single word.
Well, now
mine's a little bit bigger.
It's so nice. You have the internet. You can just literally Google it, and Google will even correct your spelling. It's lovely. But nevertheless.
Sometimes you underestimate how badly I spell something. If I've only heard it.
Mine's a little bit bigger than yours, but that's big enough for the house.
Hi, and welcome to Dictionary Flex. I will be your host today, Glory. I'm so glad you've all come.
How do you know we're among writers?
It's like I know.
Here's my dictionary. go there.
I'm sorry. I was just like, oh, it's right here. I might as well show the one that I use.
I'm
That I use
teasing
the
you.
most.
With love. It's just,
Yes.
hey, this is the community, right?
But even dictionaries get outdated, but I just feel like
They
I
do.
need to have it. I need to have it, though.
I love to see, like, the way I can tell how old a dictionary is go look up the word media. And in the dictionary, there is like this sharp crossover change where modern dictionaries do not reference it as a physical object that things are used on.
I'm curious.
Let's go, ladies.
And older ones only reference
Mine's
it
older.
as
Okay.
a physical material.
While they talk, let's go ahead and Maggie says, where's the beginning? She's got a whole... Well, yeah, let's start at Maggie's beginning while they look it up.
Okay.
But in
There
the
it
90s,
is.
there was a movement toward preserving artistic integrity and making things exactly as it was written, which is why She Who Shall Not Be Named was given a pass on all her stereotypes. This shift for diversity awareness didn't start until after 2008, 2009. And all of that stems from the projection that started in the early 1990s, and that there is no race, there are only humans. All of you were born too late to see how the minority cultures were appropriated into mainstream media in hideous stereotypes. That is why Do the Right Thing called out the ignore the difference mentality of the 90s and made such a big scandal, especially when Spike Lee was discredited by the Oscars and Grammys. So, yeah, I think like she was talking about earlier about Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah, I think that was
I do
about
want
Lord
to
of
just
the
say,
Rings.
like, Maggie does have a comment, though, for your spelling.
My Google can't figure out what you want to spell.
Yeah. No, there was also
Struggle is real.
but there was a comment that said someone was asked like why. Okay. CB said I remember her being on a talk show about and being asked her by a disabled kid why wizards didn't have disabilities, and she said it was because their magic prevents it.
Ooh, hello and welcome to Ableism 101.
I hate that. I hate that so bad.
And yet, magic can't fix Neville Longbottom's parents.
They were
I'm
tortured
like-
into insanity
Why did Dumbledore wear bifocals?
for the fashion.
Was it an affectation? Why did Harry Potter wear glasses? That is a disability.
Yeah.
I know.
You know? They won't let you drive if you need glasses and you're not wearing them. They'll get mad at you if you try to drive. I know.
Yeah.
Okay, Media, an ancient country of Southwest Asia.
Got that
If you
one.
go to Iran, and then if you go to Medium and go down to Media, I get the communications industry or profession or a method of a means of mass communication.
Yep.
Congratulations, Sarah. Mine does not have that last one. I've got the other ones, not that last one. I am officially, this is the one, I've had this book since I think I was in high school.
Sure.
And I don't know, I love it. And I can't, it's one of the things I can't get rid of.
Nor Sergio.
It's okay.
I don't want to ever, I've like taped it back
You
together.
love it.
I
Yeah.
love it so much.
Your
So
writer
little
friends are
secrets.
never going to tell you to dump.
No, they're
Yeah.
like, no, you need more because the dictionary will get lonely. So get
So
it
they
other
have
dictionary.
they do have research, and there's a reason why you can't get rid of that book. The older a book is, the more it produces a few compounds that are addictive. There's a reason why librarians don't like to leave libraries and like to smell old books.
It's
This is a
That
thing.
must be what
It's
it
not.
is.
It's not the
fungal-
glue.
fungus
It's
that
what it's
naturally
on paper.
occurs in all books, not just new books or not just old books. It has to do with a special combination of, book materials.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome, and it's very mildly euphoric. Like, so
Is it?
it's
Okay,
not.
I'm really enjoying going through the pages.
Yeah,
right
it is mildly euphoric. It's not what anyone would consider addictive. Like, as far as brain chemistry, they have actually put librarians in MRIs to check. For real.
So I'm safe to keep
You're
my
fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's all
Even
right.
if you weren't, we'd probably be like,
Yeah, what a way to go. Yeah. But it has been noted since what the I want to say the 10th century in Europe, this mild euphoria that happens when someone is perusing older books and scrolls has been noted since at least in documentation from the 10th century monasteries in Europe.
Well, that's why there's old books smell candles.
Yes. Oh,
Ooh, yeah, that makes sense.
I love the smell of old books.
I don't mean to be rude, but I would like to get back to the world building.
Yes.
Let's go on.
Do you have a timeline, whereas other people...
Yeah.
Yes, Zara, keep us on schedule.
Normally, I wouldn't care. It's just that these are always on Monday before I have class.
I know. I'm sorry.
But anyway, so getting back to elements of these movies that are worth using and noticing. Another one is just Black Panther, and why do they have these visual moments where there's not much talking? And it's because it's another way to always make sure you have a downbeat for all the high emotion in these stories. All these stories are built on high emotion running you through. But if you don't have any pauses, people get exhausted. You're not going to enjoy it. People love Marvel films because of the roller coaster of emotion. There is not that much logic in Marvel movies. There really isn't.
It's just a parade of feelings. There's no logic. This stuff doesn't make sense.
But it does raise a good point, though. In a lot of books, you need these little pauses.
Mm-hmm.
You need to give your characters breaks and tell your audience, your readers, about these breaks. Because otherwise, it's just one catastrophe from the next, and you get emotionally exhausted reading it. And then they'll put it down. You don't want to put down the story. The whole point is to write like it's crack.
I mean, from what people have said about my books, I succeed. But I always doubt it as I'm doing it. I'm like, oh God, I hope this is balanced enough.
Yeah, you always feel like, oh, this is going to be boring. But it's like, I always say, you need those moments. You need those times. And it's, you can do some character growth. You can have your, do those moments between characters. It's all important. We need it. So if you've got to have these downtimes, make them useful, use them. Let the characters have some more intimate, slower interactions that help with the character development and relationship growth.
It's a great place to talk. The characters can talk about their own internal motivations, or even what they feel are important points about their own backstories, and it not feel like the exposition bug is here to buzz in everyone's ears on the page. No, it would feel organic to have characters discuss amongst each other. Well, why are you doing this? Why are you on this mission? What is going on? Or what about your past is informing your present?
Yep. Otherwise, it does become exhausting. I feel like I watched something that was like that, and it got to be like, okay, it's like every time it's just like there's not a moment to breathe.
This is so long ago.
It does get exhausting.
I was watching Grey's Anatomy when I was going through the education program. I watched Grey's Anatomy because all my other classmates were watching it, and I needed something to talk about with them. Mm-hmm. And so I had TiVo, so I was watching Grey's Anatomy, and I remember this was so long ago. It was maybe the second or third season, where there was an episode where it just felt like it was 45 minutes because I got to skip the commercials of just emotional triage. There was not a single down scene. Not even for 30 seconds. And I'm like, why are they doing this? I am exhausted. I do not want to ever watch this show again. I'm already tired from college. And yet I just felt like it was really, it wasn't paced well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there was not a single down scene from the very start of it. I think was it the one maybe where there was there's a bomb in someone's body. I feel like it already had jumped the shark. But anyway.
And yet, a decade more later.
I know, I got off that bus around season 5.
I mean,
so did I.
I've never watched it. At this point, I'm like, why bother?
Yeah.
It's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, I think I started watching it. A lot of people were watching it, and so I was like, I guess I want to talk. But then I got off of it. I was like, oh no, it's an exhausting show. And then it's just, I don't know. It was so much stuff. I was just like, this is too much.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't like medical dramas, because there's a new one that's
I love House.
Yeah, it
House,
depends.
and then,
It was all.
New Amsterdam was good, but my mom hates
I like New Amsterdam.
My mom hates the new season though, because she's like, "Oh, all that character development that you did for the main character in the previous season, the writer for this season doesn't care." And my
Right.
so
Yeah.
But like, I feel like with world building in a story though, like with downbeats and stuff, even not in downbeats, because especially in my sci-fi books, I kind of mix it in with everything else. But like I've published 5 books, but these are like 3 kind of different ones, and I'll explain in a moment. So like for this one, the main character is a witch, but she doesn't like know anything about magic because her mom on purpose like didn't educate her. It's not like her mom was neglectful. It was like a decision which you can argue was like maybe not the best decision, but there are merits to the whatever. So she's like learning everything about the paranormal world kind of like along with the reader. But then there's another character who like has been steeped in it for like centuries. So like he knows stuff, but like he's explaining stuff to her too. Not always, and not always like super didactically, which would be like annoying. But like there is that. And then here, like these are 2 werewolves. And so like they know the drill. Like they don't really talk about being the werewolf stuff. Like sometimes me as the author, I put in stuff for the reader, but it's not a lot.
That's the next one I'm reading. I have them right here.
and someone said that this one's their favorite of the trilogy.
Oh, good. So I have something to look forward to.
And then for this, it's kind of like in the middle because, so my main character lives at Area 51. And that was on purpose, but like there's a lot of military stuff, which like if you're in the real world, you might know some of it because I did like talk to Writerlock on YouTube, AuthorTube, who like knows certain things. So I ran a bunch of things by her, but she's also like, you have creative license because obviously it's Area 51. And she's like, and that's above my pay grade. But then I have her like learning about the alien world, which is completely new to her and the reader. So it's like, I don't explain everything about the military, but she kind of explains certain things, like because her thinking process is very influenced by the fact that she grew up on a military base, even though she's not in the military herself. So like it comes up only as needed. And I've always written stories like that. And half the time, like I don't write out the whole history of something before I start writing the actual story that I'm planning to tell. Whereas I know some people like write an encyclopedia and then write their thing. And I think it's cool both ways, but like I've never been able to do that. And like, yeah, I do it as I go along.
Yeah, I world build as I need it for the story.
Yeah.
And then I note it, so I'll remember it later. Otherwise, it will get very messy. But like when I was young, because my mother taught me storytelling starting at the age of 5. And because of my mother's side of the family, her family's oral traditions went back hundreds of years to the ghettos of Eastern Europe, and specifically in the Ukraine. And so she was like teaching me as she had been taught, and her mother had been taught, and her mother's mother, and on. And so like by the time I guess I was in middle school, my issue with world building is too exhausting. Trying to remember all of these locations, like in a town, all the stores and stuff and all the people. And so Mom said, an easy way to do it is you can model it off of a place you're familiar with. So I lived in Oxford, Mississippi at the time. So that's exactly what I did. I modeled it off of Oxford. And she even helped me. She found I don't know what you call the kind of map. It was one of those, oh, isn't Oxford so cute and quaint kind of map. It was not what I would call accurate. But like, and she essentially showed it to me and said, we're going to go home and you're going to draw your own version of this. With the, and I like literally since I was in middle school used the Monopoly houses and hotels on their sides and outlined them
That sounds
That's
cool.
cute.
a piece of paper, and the buildings. It just did that. And then when there was like, oh, I need a bigger building, like, because Oxford has a square, a very old fashioned. It has like, and you can drive around it. Hence, in Oxford, you can go square squatting. That is a real term, where you sit on benches on the greenery area of the square and watch all the cars go by. And you say hi to everybody as they drive around the square. So it's like a sitting parade situation. I don't know how to put this.
I think it's cute.
And so, like, for that, we would make like little larger templates. Good night, CB. And, you know, this was her way of like, make a map and make an easy to look at map. You don't have to make it as complex as like a real town is. And the same way with people, like with people, it was like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to cast all the people in your story as if they are real actors. So what actor do you want to play this role? Who sees?
Oh, I've been so bad at that. I never do that because I can never.
Well, it's like it's sort of like a mnemonic for me because it's easier for me to remember each person because like I already am familiar with that actor's face. I'm familiar with their acting style because obviously I'm not going to cast actors that I am not familiar with their works.
Right. Yeah.
So, and like even from that, I am old enough that I have a printer at home, and yes, I will actually print out pictures of the actor in like some role I like, and put them up on a poster board with the character name labeled, so that later when I'm like, oh wait, that's right, and it's already up there. The map is up, the poster board with all the characters, and at least a picture that I got out of a magazine or something is all up there, so I don't have to keep it in my head. Otherwise, I will go insane.
Yeah, that's me. If I'm doing a short story, that's basically what I do. Like, what is the place? Who are my main characters? But I like what I'm writing now. I'm doing a big sci-fi fantasy, which has a lot of stuff. And to do that, you have to name things. There is no way on earth I could remember. Otherwise, I'm going to start calling it the stuff that's on Star Trek. You know, right. Because that's what's in my head. I have to name these things myself. I can't make it Star Trek or Star Wars or something else spacey because they call it a taser or whatever.
A phaser.
Yeah, a phaser or the simulators or I have to come up with my own names.
Sure.
And things have to be different. So I actually have to make a list. I have to do all of the world building. And I do this, so because I do it for my sci-fi fantasy, for my sci-fi novel, it's easy to do it for my fantasy novel. And I make all my characters.
I have an alien pronunciation guide.
Nice.
Yes.
Because people were like,
thank you so much.
And I was just like, I can't handle my alpha readers pronouncing them wrong.
Yeah. Because I like to know how things are pronounced too.
I hate it when they leave it up to you. Do you remember like that the sci-fi in the 80s and 90s with like these weird names, and it was like there's apostrophes in there and all sorts of weird.
I have some apostrophes, but they're all really easy. Like Izm, like EIZ''M. Like there's not really another way you can pronounce it. And then there's like Macken, MAK''E. Like it's very easy.
But I remember there was like all this old, like, was it L. Ron Hubbard was pretty, I think like he used it a bunch of like, how do these letters go together into a sound? Like it was a little too much. I like it when they are pronunciation guides, when it's like.
Give me some vowels.
Yeah, give me some vowels.
You can never complain that mine don't have vowels. There are vowels. Yeah. There are certain ones, though, where it's like an LM, and I'm like, you know what? Someone's going to mispronounce it, so I might as well just put it in the pronunciation.
I used to joke, I'm like, did the vowels cost extra? That's why they didn't use them?
So cool.
And I have to decide how it's going to be pronounced. I have aliens like that, and I'm like, this is how it's pronounced, and it's not filled in here because it's all in my notebook, but it's all stuff I have to transfer. But I have it written out for all of my characters. All my main characters are done. I was getting ready to do my secondary characters and my side, because I need to know, where is this alien from? They are going to have like little phrases that are particular to their world. So if they have a greeting, I'm going to make myself insane if I don't have this stuff written down. You know what I mean?
I created an alien alphabet. Like I spent like a whole day creating the alien alphabet, and then I realized, wow, I just wasted time because you know what? My main character can read the alphabet and doesn't realize it's a different alphabet until someone else points it out to her that like, yo, what you just read wasn't English. How can you read that?
And McCaffrey names. Yes, ma'am. I still don't know how to pronounce some of them. And the way that like the reader would pronounce them on what is it, Recorded Books Incorporated? No, that's not. They're pronouncing it in a way that does not look like it on print. Not. Yeah.
But yeah, I've got to create my world and people have always they'll ask me, how do you do this? I'm like, only make as much as you need to. For me, I love it. So if I get to do more, or I find out that I need, I get excited. It makes me happy. Making the maps, even I had to do for this one, I had to make the Triangulum Galaxy. Mm-hmm. For me, that's fun. But right. If that's not fun for you, don't knock yourself out and just drive yourself crazy. Just do what you need to do so that you're not having the person's middle name is one thing at the beginning of the book and halfway through their middle name changes or their eye color changes. So I say do as much as you need. But for me, it's part of the joy of writing is creating the world. So and we call ourselves world builders and we love it. And the more we learn about it, I'll learn different techniques and I'll be like, oh, I'll take a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And it's fun. It's really enjoyable. It's not fun for a lot of people. And I understand Panthers. I understand Panthers.
I'm not going to make a language. No. I know they now have language generators and I'm like, that's hilarious. I'm moving on with my life. Like no shade on anyone who makes languages. I get it. Tolkien, for instance, apparently made languages and nobody was interested, so he literally wrote stories just to show off. This was his ultimate flex, and I'm like, I am here for that. That I can appreciate. Of like, that's right. No one appreciates your genius, so why don't you write us a story and we just have to read this stuff? Sure, go for it. Whatever works.
Yeah. No, like I made the alphabet because I thought I was going to show it in some of the books. Like I thought it was going to be printed in the books, and then I was like, well, she can read it so fluently that she doesn't realize it's a thing, and there's a reason to that. And I was like, because it's not just that she can read it and understand it immediately. It's like she reads it and doesn't realize it's in another language. I was like, and I can't really put it in because it's like kind of from her point of view.
Now I will go ahead and say, since Doll is not here, her big pet peeve is writers naming other places, planets, locations in French and thinking that is alien.
Oh my god, that's so
science fiction. That really irritates her. And I mean, I absolutely can understand, but I'm like, I'm gonna go ahead and speak for Doll because she has ranted about this enough times that I know this rant. And just mention this.
I feel that.
Of just because you give it a French name
doesn't.
It's not that France is still on Earth, y'all. It's not sci-fi.
Oh no,
I don't think any English speakers know what French is. It's like,
no, I have a dystopian novel that I'm planning, and I'm debating on whether or not I'm going to make that my 4th book this year instead of like a really emotionally heavy book that I don't know if I have the bandwidth for this summer, because it's already half written anyway. Where I don't really, I might rewrite it to deal with race a bit more, but it's mostly just classism in my story. And even then, like, I know I need to go back and add more stuff about it because when I started writing the book, I like wasn't as educated about it as I am now. So like I was being pretty like, oh, it's there. And you can tell it's there, but like, I'm not really touching on it. And like, I don't want to be one of those writers that we've been bitching about for like the past 2 hours. But there are different continents, right? And so like I took certain words from different languages from different continents and I scrambled them, to be like, so like I know that one of the places is literally l'amour, but like mixed up and jumbled. Sure. But like I'm not calling it amour because like that's a present thing now.
Yeah, that's a real word.
And like, and the world is taking place, and the story is taking place after World War III. And like, You know, like the biggest problem now is, you know, it's like dynasty and class stuff, but it's not race, and it's there's a lot of corrupt stuff, but it's not like the stuff we normally think about because we haven't really had to deal with that type of corruption.
Right.
Mhm.
Corruption in the power structure, but the day-to-day stuff that people have to suffer through is not what we have to currently suffer through.
Maggie says they have literally the same Hydra-esque culture for all bad guys and the broken noble hero culture trope for all good guys. Tom and I were literally trying to remember the other day of which Marvel characters, good or bad, are good fathers, and I was like, I can't think of any. Helmut Zemo, is he like
Fathers? Like whether they're
Yeah, he was actually a good attentive father to his kid.
Yeah, both of his kids. Yeah, I think. Yeah. He was very concerned about the safety of his children. That's why his father, their grandfather, was working so hard to protect them outside of the city limits of Sokovia. Yeah, like he was an actual concerned and present father as best he could with his military job. Yeah.
I was going to say that as best he could is important. We can't.
All I would ask of any father is to just do the best you can with the resources you have, because what parent can do more than that?
Don't be an asshole.
Yeah.
I mean, like, okay, so my degree is in essentially, like, I went to get an education degree, but it's based on child and adolescent psychology. That was like where, since it was out of the College of Psychology at the time. So that is, I have more classes in child and adolescent psychology than I do in curriculum. And the thing that really became apparent pretty quickly in my degree program was, and they even acknowledged it, is most parents' real job is to try to do their best not to screw up their kids. Because most kids, when they are just simply surrounded by love and support, and of course your daily physical needs, physical safety, shelter from elements, food, warmth, hugs.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Right. Most children, when they are given all of this, will grow up to be lovely. It's parents have more influence in a negative way than a positive way on their children. And so I think that's why Marvel really focuses on whether they're good guys or bad guys. There's a lot of bad dads in the Marvel universe. And it almost seems like, I would not call it a trope. I would call it a pervasive philosophy.
Well, it's like Disney killing off all the moms.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you
And
noticed
the step parent
issues here in the fiction?
The step parent always being like horrible, the worst.
Well, the reason for the step parent is because that in the original fairy tales they were the biological parents, and then Disney was like, "Oh no, we can't
do that."
Parents.
No, you can't have a biological mother be so mean and horrible, or a biological father like, "Hey, let's go feed our kids to witches in the woods." You know, at least we won't.
Yeah, no. Oh, we're gonna make them step parents.
Right.
Yeah. So that there's not the expectation that the connection should be there. So it makes it a little bit easier to believe that this person is just going to bake the child in a pie or something.
Sure.
The biological mother just, unfortunately though, gets the axe every time.
Yeah.
Unless Cinderella, whose parents both died.
Both.
I mean, when in doubt, kill them all.
Yeah.
I mean, as a child, I genuinely felt like I can't wait for my parents to die so my adventurous life can finally begin. And my parents, I told them, no, I'm an autistic child. I told my parents this, of like, I can't wait for you to die so my adventures can begin. And my mother's like, what did you say to me? And I'm
going to live forever just to spite you for that.
He was like, well, you're going to miss me after I'm dead. And I'm like,
am I though?
I get to save the world, will I? Is you being alive the only thing between me saving the world?
Yeah, that's when I get my magical powers.
Right. Hence my mother going, we have to have more conversations. So she started taking me out more like Saturday mornings. I didn't get to stay up to watch cartoons. No, you're going garage sailing with me. We're going to have conversations. So that I wasn't just waiting for her to die for my life to begin. I grew up on Disney and a bunch of other Saturday morning cartoons and stuff where it's always the orphan kid that is going on adventures and is having a wonderful and exciting life because they're an orphan. And so, frankly, they made it seem very appealing.
As an orphan who got adopted, I was like, oh, no. I'll keep my family.
Oh, I'm not saying that, I had good opinions as a child necessarily. I'm just...
No, I know, but I'm just laughing.
I am not going to defend 10-year-old Glory on this one.
Yeah. But there is a theory that the reason all the mothers die, although this theory makes no sense to me psychologically, because I think it would be the opposite. But Disney bought his mom a house, and then she died in that house shortly after because of like a kitchen fire or smoke inhalation or something. And something was wrong with the house that like they didn't know, and he felt super guilty about that. So the theory is that like all moms in Disney films died, and I'm like, if your mom died and you felt guilty about it, wouldn't you keep all of mothers alive in your stories? But yeah. That's like a random...
Oh no, it's the need to self-trigger.
Yeah,
we talked about this with PTSD.
That's true.
You keep wanting to relive it.
Yeah, I have that.
Yeah,
sometimes.
And I mean,
it's less so now. Thank God.
My mother's point of view on this was that was her job, was to keep me away from the adventures that are life-threatening and exciting, and would put me in the limelight or whatever. That was her job, to keep me safe till I was old enough to probably protect myself, which, by the way, was well into my 20s. It was not like, oh, well, I'm 20 now. Bye, Mom. She's like, oh, no. Because I almost took a job working in Rwanda, and my mother's like, oh, no, you're not, and hacked my Facebook account to turn down the job because it was from a classmate from when I went to boarding school who was like, hey, we're hiring. My mom was like, you're not working in Rwanda? Oh, no, you are not. And I'm like, but it's an opportunity and I'll get out of Mississippi. And mom's like, I don't care. No.
I'm 24 and my mom is still like that for me. And obviously this stuff that's been happening this year against Asians hasn't helped. But like, I have a cousin who's 6 years older than me, and she had a project. Shoot, I can picture it on the map of Africa and I can't think of the name. But it's a place that was on like the UN's like no visit list.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And she's like, no, it'll be super safe, blah, 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 blah. And both her parents were like, you're an adult, so we can't forbid you to go. But like, we're forbidding you to go.
Like my mother literally
I had to do that with
my former classmate's mother on Facebook. Stalked him of like, you need to tell him that he needs to rescind this job offer. She literally did this. I was like 24 at the time, and I'm like, ma'am.
I had to do this once with the 20-year-old, and she's like, are you gonna be really upset if I do that? I'm like, yes. I said, I love you, and I'm going to be honest with you though. If you do this way, I will be fine with it. But if you do that, I am going to be really upset. And I'm just letting you know, because I don't want you to be like, oh wow, you're really, why is she doing this? Or why I said, I'm telling you, I don't think it's a good idea. And my kids know.
My mom has always been like that too.
Yeah. I let them, they can stay at home. They're welcome at home as long as they need to until they're ready to go. We used to joke, as soon as you turn 18, you're out of here.
Right.
Didn't mean it. We just wanted to make sure that they were getting their
My mother kicked me out of my own apartment we were sharing and was like, I've taken over the lease. You need to move out, because she was getting married to our stepfather. And she's like, you need to find a new apartment. Like, oh, no. And by 24, I was married already, and I had I already had a life, but she was like, oh no, will always be my child. And in Mom's defense on this, I'm going to admit this. Mom has passed away. This is like the 10th year. She's been gone a while. In Mom's defense, there were men who came with machetes, like about 8 months after that whole incident where Mom contacted the mother of the other person to get him to rescind his job offer.
Make sure you weren't going.
In her defense, she wasn't wrong. And so the entire compound had to be vacated and everything for weeks. So in her defense, she wasn't wrong, but it was, she was again like, no, my job is to prevent Disney from happening in your life.
Yes.
So she looked at it. And I don't necessarily disagree with her. I am glad that, some of that whole smothering Jewish mother trope, can be helpful with, I guess, like people like me, at least, who's like waiting for the adventure to begin.
Well, I feel like that meme that the road signs. It's like the different fictional worlds. It's like, where would you go? And it's like, I wouldn't really want to live in any of them. Like if they took place during the time that the stories are taking place, like I would maybe live in like the Wizarding World. Obviously the author's awful, but like I would maybe live in the Wizarding World post Second Wizarding War.
Yeah,
I would
I don't know that you want to
Narnia.
I would not only 5 careers in the Wizarding World.
Yeah, it's
so I don't know that you necessarily want to.
Like, I wouldn't want to be in the Hunger Games. Like, no one wants to be in the Hunger Games, and I don't even want to be in the Capitol.
Another of Glory's favorite rants is anyone who says that they were born in the wrong time period and they want to be born in the past.
God. It's like, if you're not a white man, you cannot have been born in the wrong time period.
Also, I just want
I just want the music. I don't want to be back in the 60s or 70s, but I want the music.
You know how great penicillin is? Do you know how terrible measles
what? I was like a time machine, so I could go to some like amazing concerts before the people blew up, like my mom actually did, and like get to experience like famous musicians like in their heyday, or like the opening night of like a Broadway show that like got panned and then became a cult like favorite, like stuff like that. But I don't live in a different time period. I just want to.
Yeah, if I had a TARDIS, there's a lot of stuff that I would like to just dot in, enjoy this one thing, and then get my black out of there.
Yeah.
Not sticking around. I just want to enjoy this one thing for a little while. Okay, time for me to get out of here.
Yeah, also, like, I love air conditioning so much. Like,
oh my God.
Oh, no. Central heated air is a gift I genuinely appreciate. Having lived without it most of my life up until like the last decade, honestly. Oh, no. That's not negotiable. But I love vaccines. I love penicillin. I also love having some rights as a woman rather than no rights.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in Mississippi, women didn't get the right to vote till the 1980s. Women in Mississippi were voting under federal laws. They did not change the Constitution until the 80s. And that meant women couldn't open up bank accounts without their husband or father's permission in the 80s.
Yeah, there was an interview of like the whole Bridgerton cast, like asking them if they'd want to live it like back then. And like, I can never pronounce her name, so I'm not going to try because I feel like that would be more disrespectful to this amazing actress than like.
Yeah.
But she plays Lady Danbury. And in the interview, she's like,
my favorite character.
I don't want to live any other time.
Right. I'm like, are we nuts? No.
Yeah.
Yes, it absolutely. I 100% agree.
It's like we're barely doing okay right now.
So I brought that up.
Yes.
As the best way I could find for a segue into I know. Into sort of speaking of African futurism and uncolonized Africa, alternate universe. Another thing Gloria brought up as like, you don't have to keep telling the same story. You can also have stories in worlds where what if someone else colonized? What if it was African countries that colonized the rest of the world? What if it was Asia? What if they were the ones who want there's a lot of different ways.
Oh yeah, Asia as colonizers.
Oh,
there's a lot to unpack there, as well as like that Japan is currently doing its own version of colonizing by subsidizing their anime system and their other media, and it is working. I mean, they saw how well it worked. Bye, Heather. See you later. They saw how well it worked for America because American media really is affecting other countries' politics, other countries' sexism, misogyny. It's America's racism. We have exported inadvertently through our media, and we are now seeing the effects of it all over the world, places that never had that kind of racism or prejudice before. And so Japan
I don't
saw
know how inadvertent it was.
Well, Japan saw that and was like, yeah, let's start subsidizing our media so we can export it for the exact same purpose. So yeah, Japan is also trying to colonize. So hence why we were talking about Wakanda and Zamunda as colonizing America because are they able to? And in fact, we were like, no, it's more that it's still American colonial values that inform Wakanda's story. I would not say as much of Zamunda, although there's obviously a little bit with that whole the Jim Crow and Hayes Code about poor fatherhood and so on. You know, I would say it's kind of a bag. But trying to like take that idea and pushing it out to other countries is the 21st century version of colonization.
But I feel like if we let our imaginations like fill in what we wanted, like that African futurism that like we didn't necessarily get in the movie, but like we all can imagine
what we would like to
is like imagine Wakanda is like if it were real,
right?
They had this like we know, and they were never colonized. We can imagine certain things. Obviously, unfortunately,
watch Coming to America. I want all those fabrics. I want those outfits.
But like, I think we can imagine something enough that we could imagine Wakanda, like what it would be like if Wakanda did colonize other parts of the world. But I, at the same time, because we know that like Wakanda isn't in it for that, like I think it is hard to imagine what a colonial power who like knows what colonization can do. What they would do. You know what I mean? Because you would go in and they'd be like, oh, like we're not going to be like that. But then obviously it's a colonial power. So like we only know it as having problems.
Guess what? They all repeat the same thing.
Yeah.
Case in point, Israel.
Don't, please.
Yeah. We have the same arguments as well. We have the same discussions and the same just exhaustion of doing the exact same thing.
And like, I don't want to see Wakanda become the villain in this story.
You
know what I mean? So
this is so heartbreaking.
But it's still it does give you opportunities to springboard into very different stories than just the same repetitious ones we keep having.
Agreed.
Okay. So, like one of the things we talked about was what if instead of Europe and then later America was the forefront of inventions and technology that Africa was instead? What would that look like? You could have
like
different power forces. You know, if America had been stalled in technology inventions in the 1800s, and Europe never really got out of the Middle Ages as far as their technology innovations. So instead, at the same time, Africa was the one that they were coming up with all sorts of.
If they hadn't been colonized, they still had all those resources within their borders.
Well, even before the resources, you had Egypt building pyramids, and
I was going to say
tombs, and you have
before
wasn't in Africa, but like China created paper, like the abacus. But you have and now I'm blanking on the female mathematician who created like algebra, like even before the man who like normally gets credited with it. And
isn't it something with
Egypt was like Egypt and
the Middle East,
other African
Egypt they had before all of the libraries were burnt down and all that stuff. They had aqueducts and they had these systems they didn't have and then didn't have for decades or centuries.
Rather than stalling out. You know, what if they had continued with these innovations instead of stalling out? There is no guarantee that they would, for instance, eventually come up with a lithium-ion battery. They could have very well picked a different power source. So when I lived in the Philippines, one of the things was I grew up with a toaster oven, so I wanted a toaster oven with my place. Okay, so I went to the appliance store, and they did not have electric toaster ovens because electricity, at least at the time, was uneven. Like, you would have brownouts that would last several hours every day. So instead, what they had available was a variety of kerosene-powered toaster ovens. For real.
And dangerous.
Kerosene is actually not as dangerous as other fuels like gas. But
kerosene toaster oven. That combo sounds dangerous.
Oh, I don't believe me, especially with me. Like I was 18, and I'm like, I'm lucky.
There's a reason why the Philippines either has bamboo slat houses, or the second you have any money, it's cement.
Yeah, you get a
brick and
concrete.
cement.
It's just pure concrete. So even if you burn the house, it doesn't really burn out. You just
So nothing burns.
Yeah, no, and I was living in a concrete house. So, but my point was simply like, it had never occurred to me that you could have, toaster ovens beyond what I was used to of electric power source. I had, a gas powered washing machine, a propane powered washing machine. And that was an option for me to buy. And like, that's what we're saying of like, imagine if you could do it as continents we have here, or you can make your fantasy continents, but you do not have to stick with the same old that we already have. There are plenty of other everything, and it doesn't have to be magic, but you can make it magic if you want. I mean, I'm not telling you no, but that simply like, this is not difficult world building. That's the point we're trying to make about you can really get out of that comfort zone.
I mean, because that's really what Gloria and I are really interested in, is simply we want some different stories. We love stories. We love telling stories, but we'd also like to read other stories. And so much is so repetitious.
I mean, I think as someone who reads the romance genre a lot, like I think I might be more tolerant of like the same type of stuff than like people who don't read the genre. But the reason I read it, because is like I can use less of my brain power while reading it. Like it's the only genre I can read while I'm in school, because but
also they know their tropes. They tell you all the tropes you're going to get into, so I mean, it's kind of like saying the great question right now in anime: have they hit peak isekai?
Yeah.
Or is there still more potential for I died on Earth and went to an alternate universe?
I know.
I mean, but it's enjoyable because there's known tropes.
But I feel like there are fantasy tropes too, but like
everything has tropes.
But the thing is though, with like a fantasy trope, it's like it's part and parcel, and I'm fine with it. Whereas when I read fantasy or sci-fi, like unless there's like enough unique, you know what I mean? Obviously everything has been done before, but like if there's a unique enough combination, I'm okay if it uses tropes. But if it feels like it's more of the same without anything that sets it apart, I'm like, I know this is a trope of the genre, so like I'm not mad. Like someone got my book off of NetGalley to review The Belgrade Legacy, my first book, and then they spent their whole review ripping about how much they hate the paranormal romance genre. Like it's like, why are you
reading it then?
Why did you request my book? It's like it has paranormal romance like all over the packaging and the description, whatever. So like it's not that like I begrudge a genre for having tropes, but like apart from romance, even as I'm reading, I might be like, I still want something different,
Yeah.
Well, like what was it, Charlie, or was it Adrian yesterday we were watching, was mentioning about if you're going to write in a new genre for you, one of the first things you should probably go do is go onto Reddit and go search for your genre. And almost always the top 5 posts are going to be gripes about the overused tropes in that genre. Those are the ones to avoid.
I didn't do that, but see, I call this like soft sci-fi, but I think the second book is actually harder sci-fi in comparison, and then the third book is kind of like somewhere in the middle. But like if I were to ever like try and write a like sci-fi like that, like a straight sci-fi, like I would do that because I would want to know.
Just call it science fantasy, and then no one can say anything.
Because
I call it sci-fi romance, which automatically makes everyone be like, we can't expect it to be like that sci-fi. So more I'd rather people be like surprised at like how sci-fi it is than be like they failed at the sci-fi.
How to temper expectations.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't say anything. As Gloria says, I am a sucker for some reason for the Cowboy Angel romance story. I make no excuses for this. I have no good answers for it, but you know what? I'll read it.
That is
Both versions of the
natural.
Cowboy Angel.
Dean is basically a cowboy.
So the Cowboy Angel as matchmaker, and the Cowboy Angel as fallen angel who will fall in love with the protagonist. He loves both, and I can't criticize it because I have to be honest, it's in my top 10 as well. So who am I to judge?
Yeah.
But,
I think that when you're in a genre, there's things that are expected. Because there was a debate about the romance genre versus, is it a romance or is it a drama with romance in it? And they're like, people who read romance were adamant. No, if it's romance, there better be a happily ever after, or at least a happily for now. That's what we expect. Don't tell me that it's a romance, and then at the end someone dies or you break up.
Also, no
then something.
Also, no cheating in an actual romance, but there could be in something with a romantic subplot.
Exactly.
Like the OTP has to get together. Like you can have the fact that she had an ex who may pose a problem in the story, or he had an ex that like poses a problem in the story. But like, there's never an actual chance that they get back together. Like there are some things that like. Done deal.
People are like, well, doesn't that make it boring? It's like they don't care if it makes it.
And never forget, romance, there's a reason why romance pays for everything else in publishing.
It really does.
Know what they're getting into, and they still want it.
That's I'll sometimes reach like a happy point in the story, and I look at like the progress bar, and I'm like, oh, so they're gonna have a stupid misunderstanding and break up, and then like are they gonna get back together? Is it gonna be like the best friend, or are they just gonna get over themselves? And then the story's gonna be like, too ham-fisted with like, oh, this person just needs to forgive, even though like the other person did F up. Like, and it's not just to get over yourself to get the happy.
Romance readers want to be able to easily predict the big beats.
Yes.
They're curious about how is this going to unfold, not how it is going to unfold this way.
Exactly.
And
versus
going to be
other major genres.
That third wheel that's going to come in and try and mess things up.
The other major
we know
genres
they're not going to.
I can't do tropes. I have to be original. I want to do my own M. Night Shyamalan universe of everything as a twist. Guess what?
You better call it something else.
I hate that.
Okay, so here's my view about this as a businesswoman. Romance pays everyone's bills. Because romance readers are voracious because they are getting exactly what they want. If any other genre wants to be appreciated and pay the bills, give the readers what they want. Stop trying to subvert your genre if that's not what your genre readers want. I feel like, you see these bar graphs where you see romance sales and then the next is mysteries and it's so tight. This is romance, this is mystery, and then all the way down to literary
fantasy is way
drawn. And then there's a reason. Let all of these little bars be the feedback of the readers are not getting what they want.
I love my publishing program that I'm currently in at NYU. It has great professionals. We're teaching the classes, and it's grad school, so people actually want to be there and whatever. But there is still a pervasive romance or commercial fiction, and I'm like, I am an unashamed fan of romance. Right. And please, let's all acknowledge, like we said, that romance pays the bills.
Romance pays the bills.
I'm just getting into romance, and I'm like, you know what? There's some stuff that that whole almost not predictability. Well, I guess it is predictable.
It is sort of,
but it's how does each writer do it? Yes. I'm kind of enjoying that ease of reading of it. So I'm starting to feel this.
Well, same reason for why did Star Trek Next Generation restart the Star Trek IP empire? And it's because, especially the third season on, these episodes were very, you could plot them out. You know what's going to happen in each episode.
Yep.
And people liked seeing it coming.
They like a certain level of predictability. I mean, like, so in fantasy, the way I see it, like, it's not exactly the tropes that fantasy readers are looking for. It's they specifically need in that blurb or in the cover, there better be the animals they like. They're looking for the fantastical creatures that they like. And if you don't provide it, they will not pick up the book. They will not read. And if you have, say, I don't know, if you have a unicorn on the cover, but there's no unicorn ever shows up in the story, you are going to write her hell.
Like,
and they will
why?
You to say
Don't do that.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I put a dragon on my mock cover for my fantasy novel because I love dragons, and there will be dragons. There must be, because I love. Okay, but I would never, just because I love dragons, put a dragon on the cover and then there's no that would make me so mad. I'll be reading, like, halfway through, I'll be like, okay, where's the dragon?
I read a book for.
Bad.
I'm gonna have to back out really soon, but I read a book for a class assignment, and it turned into a published book. But I was reading like an earlier draft, so I don't know what has changed between like the version I read and what was real. But basically, the query promised like X, Y, and Z, right? And the book was like all Z and like mentions X once and like Y maybe twice, and we were like, we got sold on this book from the query. Your priorities got like a little messed up. Like,
yeah, you need to change something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that needs to change.
I think that's where writers go wrong. Is you need to know your genre at least a little bit. Like if it's a cozy mystery, it had better frickin' be cozy
and have a mystery,
not thriller, not a slasher thriller.
Like if you've got like a murder weapon on the cover of this cozy mystery, and then nobody gets stabbed or killed with that murder weapon, people can be a little bit disappointed. But if on top of that, there's no, I don't know, psychic cat recipe in the back, some meddling aunt or grandma, if there's nothing cozy about, there's a lot of people gonna be real mad, and they're going to write to publishers.
Well, there are people who are like, oh, writing to market is a sellout. It's like, okay, but like the market means readers. So like, unless you want no one to read your book, there needs to be a market somewhere, and you would like to like appeal to that market, even if it's like 5 people. And super, super niche. Hopefully there are more than 5 people, so you can make a living off of what you're.
I feel like the only market that has 5 people is the literary market. But okay, that's just my opinion, and I say that it's
not true.
I think there's
a huge literary market, but they like only read like 2 books a year or something.
That's probably what it is.
Many bad opinions about the literary.
It's so hard for me to find.
Mostly because as a public librarian, I got to see who reads what at the library, you know? And like, let me tell you, there are plenty of stereotypes about readers that really do hold up. And then there's some that don't hold up. But yeah, most of our romance readers were either newish moms, you know, kids under the age of 8, and truckers and bikers. Like, you know, oh, he comes in a biker gang jacket. Yeah, here's the romance in the large print. There you go. Like every freaking time.
That's cool.
Like,
I think so too.
Well, they want to be hugged too.
All right, real quick. Let's just tell you, since you guys are, you know, seem to be very interested in learning that kind of stuff.
I mean, yeah, like a lot of
what we learned at the video store and the back room.
So we had a back room. We had an adult room in the back.
And so we were on the
high. Like an office.
Yeah, and we were on a major highway. So truckers, everyone came through here. We were next to both a military base and a national park with camping, state park with camping, where people would come from around the world, really. Yeah,
we're actually around the world. And boating. There was boating over there too. And
also Mississippi actually has some of the better hunting. So again, we get people from everywhere because they could out-of-state hunt here.
Right. It's one of the few
states. So we got everyone. And we chat with people. As you see, you know, our parents have trained us to be conversationalists from being very young. So we kind of get a sense of what people did and all this other stuff. And there's a very simple equation to tell about people's backroom interests when you see them without knowing anything else. And it's this: the more the more social credit you get in your profession and just for being you. So like, doctors, nurses, those kind of things, or preachers.
Prestige.
Thanks. The odder and kinkier your interests are going to go, the less prestige, the less society really shows it cares about you, the softer your
The more
interests are going to be.
that you are treated by society, the more marginalized you're treated, the more you're going to enjoy our number one best hit renter, Rebecca in Paris. It's a lot of gauzy curtains in that whole movie. It's a lot of gauze and voiceovers, as like a lot of Vaseline on the camera to make everything look soft, and a lot of saxophone music. Are you getting the vibe here? It's very much soft core. There's nothing overt or ugly about it. It's very romantic heavy.
But if you ever want to know who your audiences are, that's how you tell.
I found that super interesting, but I really have to go because class is.
Yes, I was wondering, like,
All right,
later.
So bye.
Bye, Zara.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Zara.
You're going to be on my channel this Friday, Nia?
Yes.
And then
I'll be on Friday
both of
morning.
you on my channel, so I'll DM you guys about it. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Zara.
Okay, let me fix that. Okay.
Yeah, I always do the Zara thing too.
Yeah, I was like, when's she got to go? As soon as everybody stops talking, I got to find out what she's saying.
Well, that's also why, I wanted to tell that real quick, because I figured Zara would actually be interested in. And this plays out. We found very few exceptions to this. It truly becomes a question about, do people seek out these, or is this when you're in those profession, when you're in that position, this is how your psychology changes. We were never able to determine that.
Interesting.
But it is the prestige society has for you really does influence sexuality for some reason.
It's kind of interesting, yeah. There were certain stereotypes that held up. I mean, like where we were in the Deep South, like the video store was along a major highway. So we had a lot of people traveling through that were not necessarily from Mississippi. We also had a lot of senators, legislatures, mayors drive through. If you bought anything and you wanted to return it in case it was defective, you had to sign your receipt that we kept a copy in order that you could bring back your copy of it to return it. And you're thinking, oh, surely they would not, like people, of prestige, wouldn't be so concerned about a $10 or $20 movie, right? Oh, yeah. It turns out the people. So, anytime any clerk was, selling to somebody of a notable name, their receipt went in a different box from everyone else's receipts that we would keep. And that was in the insurance box, which I still have, actually. But because I'm, when am I going to throw this away? But, so, we know what a lot, we literally have documented proof by name of, what various kinds of professional people are into.
Wow.
Because enough people come in, you start seeing patterns of, and some of them are odd patterns, frankly. I was not expecting some of those patterns, which I'd be happy to tell you off screen sometime. But versus at the library, for instance, Cozy Mysteries, there was about half of the Cozy Mystery readers were in fact little old ladies.
That rings true to me.
But the other half were often middle-aged men who were, in professional capacities. I had bank managers, I had, financial advisors, several deans of various colleges, of different departments and colleges, come in, and they loved Cozy Mysteries. They did not want the police procedurals, for instance. So we started seeing various patterns about it. I can honestly tell you, Laurel K. Hamilton readers are list makers. Every one of them will come in. This is the books I want to read in this series. When can you get them and where? They've got their list and they're going to keep bringing back this tattered dog-eared list till they get every single book. Because I also did the interlibrary loan, which meant I borrowed from libraries all over the country for our patrons to read the books that we didn't have currently in stock at our library system, because we had a whole system of libraries, about 4 of them, 4 different branches, if you will, but we still did not have enough space for all the books of all the series everybody wanted.
Right.
And also books die. Books, eventually get loved to the point that they do not function as books any longer. The pages, But yeah, like we did see certain patterns versus I can honestly tell you, literary readers love long-winded, under-edited, overly descriptive stories. Like they see a thick-ass book and they get excited because they're going to know what every single curtain fabric pattern looks like in this book.
Wow. They
relish it. It is literally the thing I hate. As somebody who's dyslexic and has ADHD, it's like, I do not want to know what the curtains look like unless it is pertinent to the story. Do not waste my reading time with that. No, they love it. They prefer it. And again, I'm not judging that. It's just like, it's different demographics. It's different kind of readers with different genres. And so I really got to see a picture about that, because I'm honestly more of a nonfiction reader. I love something nerdy. It doesn't matter what it is. But yes, I will read every cookbook in every single library if you let me.
Yeah, I'll read history
every
stuff, that
BBC
kind of stuff.
documentary.
Oh, I love a good documentary.
Yeah, I know way too much about United Kingdom because BBC makes great documentaries.
They really do.
I'm not an Anglophile. I do not want to know all this, but the documentaries are so watchable that I keep.
They are.
I mean, 1066, the fight for Middle Earth. I'm like, you have me with
They're
this.
so good.
I did not know I cared about the Battle of Hastings one iota, but here I am spending an hour. Yes.
I try to get my kids to watch them with me, and they're like, nah, Mom, not happening. I'm like, but it's really cool. Look.
You have to find the right ones. Like, what's his name? Director from... Monty Python. Terry Gilliam.
Okay, I do have a son who would like.
Speaking Terry Jones.
Like
Terry Gilliam does the fiction stuff mostly.
Okay.
Yeah, Terry Jones, the nudist.
I can't remember which one then, but one of them did like this series on the Vikings invading and then the lives of the medieval people. So
That's
there's
Terry
one on
Jones.
peasants.
I've probably seen it.
Yeah,
that one your kids might like because you have to find the kind that is their visual.
Yeah, I'll start watching one. Sometimes they'll come in and start watching. I'm like, I see you. But if I ask them, hey, you want to watch?
No, they're like cats. They skid away. Like,
they're like cats.
But they'll slip in. They'll have their chips and their drink and start watching. I'm like,
I love it.
Good, isn't it? I can't say anything though. I can't say. See,
okay. Well, if we're going to talk about the kind of documentaries that loop children in, or teenagers, or what have you, I would definitely recommend. It's a little bit hard to find. We have 2 out of the 3 of it, but there's a documentary series called Rude Britannia, and it is about rude culture in Britain since Hogarth. So, I think the 1500s, 1600s at the start of it. There's at least I want to say the first 2 episodes, various people have uploaded to YouTube. They're an hour long each. And they are quite fun because, they go into the music hall rudeness. They go into it's rudeness. Some of it, I'm going to warn you, is a little bit graphic. Not like you're seeing, pornography or anything. Well, I mean, there's that one drawing of wow, they showed it on a documentary. But again, it's from the 1700s of somebody made this lithograph and sewed it, and then they colored it in. This is amazing.
I'm trying to save that so I can look for it later.
Well, let me know. I'll be happy to share the link with you from my copy. But
I'll post the link for the first one in just a moment.
Okay, so I said, various people posted them on YouTube and stuff. It's really a fun, well edited 3-part series about rude media in Britain over like at least the last 300-400 years, and that's actually kind of interesting to me.
Yeah, I feel like I might have seen it.
Yeah, I have watched it a couple times.
I've watched several off of YouTube, the documentaries. They'll start playing one after another. I'll just sit there and watch them all.
Another documentary that Tom roped me into, because it was from Channel 4, and if you know Channel 4, and Britt, you know it was definitely rude. It's called Sex Bomb, and it is about the Britain's propaganda department during World War II. Leaflets, sexually explicit leaflets that were dropped on German soldiers, and the radio programs and everything, like, and then the counter propaganda that the Germans were putting out aimed at British and French soldiers, and it's fantastic.
Oh wow, that sounds.
Again, it's only an hour long, but it is. I'm like, they had a department. Of course, they had a department. It's Britain. Of course they had a department. But like, I love propaganda. I'm always fascinated by the propaganda machine. Because I'm fascinated how it works on humans. Obviously, since I have a degree in human psychology, I'm kind of fascinated by humans. And so like Sex Bomb is interesting to see because apparently it really did work. It did help alter morale among soldiers on both sides. And they talk about that and they back it up with, how they cite this of like, this is how we know that this is true, that this, influenced this or that and what have you. So I actually found that documentary really interesting. Again,
very cool. Yeah.
Just another one. I'm all for it. Some ones I like, but yeah, that's with like fantasy readers. It's like there at the library, I would say there was like two main groups. There's middle-aged white men and there's young people. And what they like are very different things. So what middle-aged white men, and this is, again, I'll admit this was about 5 years ago. So, I mean, I don't imagine readership data is really going to change that much in this time period. But middle-aged white men were into, Terry Brooks and these long-winded fantasy novels that do not, frankly, in my opinion, deliver on the fantasy animals they have promised on the cover, but okay, whatever. And there's like some real baked-in sexism definitely going on there. Young people, on the other hand, are honestly looking for fantastical adventures and preferably a break from the bigotry and prejudices in their own life.
Which is why I started reading fantasy. So
yeah, and that's
years ago.
So, like the things that like the African American kids were liking in fantasy could be slightly different from, say, the white kids, because the white kids obviously were like more tolerant of if there was like some racism going on, even if it was subtle. Then obviously the African American kids, like, I already have this at home. Why do I want this in a book? And I totally agree.
Yep.
But like that was the only real difference I saw was like, if you already are getting this kind of bigotry in your real life, you don't want it in the fantasy. And that was like the only change in demographics I saw as far as fantasy readers. However, I will say that the young, like, and when I say young, I'm saying under the age of 23, young fantasy readers, particularly who'd already gotten out of the YA section, are very tolerant of a lot of what I would call clunky writing, where there's very little flow, that as long as you're delivering on the fantastical creatures that they are interested in, and as long as they can predict the quest, like, the major beats, as long as they can keep predicting the quest, they will keep writing. If they're not sure where it's going, they would tend to drop off within the last third of the book.
I can see that too. Yep.
Because again, they're stressed. They're stressed at school. They're stressed in college. They're stressed at their, low-paying job. And it's just like romance readers. They want to know what's going to happen because they want to get a payoff.
Oh.
In reading.
Yep.
That reminds me of another segue for we were going to talk about of what we can learn from these movies.
Okay.
About what works for them and why. And it's something that's been forgotten in recent movies. The last decade has really forgotten this. But if you watch movies in the 80s, you'd be like, okay, what the hell's going on with this plotting? And it's up until the late 90s, early 2000s, all executives in movies essentially gave notes that you have to make this movie watchable and entertaining to people who are either or drunk or tired. If that kind of audience cannot enjoy this, they would not put it out there.
They wouldn't greenlight it.
Wow.
And
So
that's
it
what
has
you also
to
see.
be easy to follow, both TV,
As well as bringing repetitive. You have to bring back up the same information later on.
whether we're talking about movies or television or even like fiction magazine stories. It has to be followable for the drunk and exhausted is how I call it. Because I've been like watching a lot of this stuff, and I've started seeing a pattern, like watching 80s TV and movies and 90s that was like, oh, they're in the late 2000s, it starts getting real complicated. You cannot drink and watch this movie. Versus 80s stuff, oh, have fun. You can do a kegger in the middle of it. You miss nothing. Because
and also, just because you say it once doesn't mean that you shouldn't bring it up 30 minutes later again to remind your audience why they're on this trip, why they're on this adventure. Just because, go on.
But they don't. If it works, okay, so it worked back in the 80s and 90s, but it's something I feel like people complain about if something's too repetitive now. So what has changed?
Audiences now consume things at a faster pace versus, like with books, you need that pacing and repetition if your reader is going to put down the book between readings. If they are not going to just read it in one go, you need to periodically remind them what they're doing.
I remember reading interviews of several, pretty what I thought was big ticket hot writers from sci-fi writers mostly, but sci-fi and fantasy writers in the 70s, 80s, and 90s who bragged about they figure out where in their books to let their audience put the book down. Like they orchestrate it so that they essentially pulling the strings. They know, so they give them a hook. They hook them here because they know it'll carry them through, because they are like, my readers only will last about 2 chapters at a time, or 1 chapter, or 4 chapters. And then I let them put it down, but I give them a hook so they'll want to pick it up the next day. And they literally would orchestrate their books that way. These are reasons they were best-selling science fiction and fantasy writers, is because they would orchestrate being able to put down a book, because they knew nobody's finishing a book in a day.
Yeah.
Their lives, and also it's a lot of stress on the eyes.
Yeah, it is. I totally get that. So yeah, if they figure my audience is going to read for about an hour or so before bed, they're going to get a good 3 chapters. So I'm going to give that 3rd chapter a nice ending, but something that's got, I need to find out what.
Like the last page, there'll be a hook while they'll want.
But not a total cliffhanger.
Right.
Like there's cliffhanger chapters where you're like, oh no, I got to keep going, and then the hook chapter. So that's
like a soft hook would be like a question that needs to be answered in the next 1 or 3 chapters, but you can put it down.
You can go to sleep or go to work.
Yeah, you can just wonder about it all next day. So you essentially are anticipating getting to do your hour of reading that night. While yes, you are exhausted, so you're not totally paying attention, but that you are still able to follow along. I mean, that is how writers used to craft it. And like, I'm genuinely concerned, why aren't writers still doing it? I think that actually works, because
it's the same thing as like they took the in 3-hour movies, they removed the 10-minute overture, what do you call it? The intermission. Even like suddenly your audience watching 3-hour movies don't need a pee break.
Except they do. They just leave.
Yeah, they probably, Well, we're
also how I missed like the whole hospital scene from The Sixth Sense, and so I was genuinely surprised at the end of that film. Because I had to pee.
But we are the binge watching society. It's not like when we were growing up, Glory. We had one episode. You had to wait. If you missed it, you had to wait.
But here's my counter.
Or DVD. Or DVD. Yeah.
But here's my counter to the binge watching part.
Okay.
About why we need to go back to this drunk and exhausted reading, which is, How many people watch movies without looking at their phone?
No one.
You
No,
need to
everyone.
be able to enjoy it without having to keep all of your concentration on it.
Yeah, I feel like maybe we should go back to the drunken exhausted idea of reading or watching movies or whatever, because the phone is the equivalent of drunk or exhausted.
And like one of the problems we talked about with the sequel to Coming to America was they didn't understand why Landis did all of these very up close.
Yeah, they did glance shots, like lots of people's up close face.
And it was because Landis knew that the home movie market was in full swing in the late 80s. So he knew his movies were going to make their real money on VHS.
Right.
And at the time, those TVs were somewhere between 13 and 17 inches, usually watched from about 6 feet away. So if you're going to see anyone's expressions, you got to make it big. Wow. We're watching this current movie, the sequel Coming to America. One, they really don't do nearly enough reaction shots to give you a sense of people's moods. But also, they don't do any close-ups. We have a 45-inch TV, and we're watching from 3 to 5 feet away, and we can't tell all of their expressions.
I couldn't read all the expressions, and I just watched Coming to America, the second one, this morning again, and I was like, I didn't see many facial expressions. Did I miss it? What happened? And yes, I was playing a game on my tablet. But I was watching, too. I was playing one of those match 3 games. Like, I can look away from the game anytime. By the way, I just want to point out, Anne is a deviant. Season Anne, you know I love you.
If I don't bring my phone with me when we go to do a family movie night, then
there are occasionally movies.
If I bring my phone, at the movie
theater, at home,
which is how most people are going to consume most movies and TV most of the time. And sure, like the first time I watch a movie, I'm probably not going to be on my phone or my tablet very much. But like, think about reading. We either have a physical book or we're using a tablet, for instance, or some sort of device like that to read. But the notifications keep coming in. They are distracted, whether they mean to be or not. Even when they're trying to set aside that hour, those notifications are still going to come in. And I mean, I know a lot of people, it's very hard to resist, especially like, for instance, if you've got a teenager who's out, so you're like, oh, are they messaging me? Do they need me to pick them up? It's still very distracting, even though people don't necessarily mean to be distracted.
Yeah.
I think it's probably a safer bet as writers to bet that more than likely our readers are going to be distracted intentionally or unintentionally, and to write accordingly. So that means plenty of hooks. So at least they have a strong reason to keep coming back to the story to finish it, even if they are interrupted. I mean, like, I was a nanny for 10 years. The amount of interruptions 3 children between the ages of 3 and 11 can do in 1 hour is unreal, when they are supposed to be doing their alone time work. They're supposed to be doing their art or whatever, things that I'm not supposed to help them with. And it's just constant. This is supposed to be my time.
And also, when I say repetition of, what the goal is and other things, I'm not saying, and usually when I hear those complaints, and I've had those complaints too, it's because I don't need a full, debrief again about
you need to be reminded.
Yes.
But it's more of just like, give me the little cliff notes again, and then give me an even shorter cliff notes, later on, of just that little highlight point to hook my memory for what was the rest that you talked about.
Yeah, like, oh yeah, we still got to get that done. But you don't need someone to come in and explain the whole thing all over again.
Exactly.
Why do we need this emerald? But we still need it.
Yes.
Like, kind of like reminding the audience why we're doing this mission. Why are we on this quest? Remember, because we're getting the emerald. You don't have to necessarily say why. You can just simply say, remember, we're getting, we've got to do this because we need that emerald. And that's all you have to say. And that is a reminder that
quick, running out of time. We still haven't got this emerald. Something like that. Thank you. It's when the whole explanation comes.
It's not like over-explaining. That's not what we're trying to add.
Yeah.
But just to reiterate from time to time, again, because it's part of the hook of they know what the mission is. You know, that clock is ticking. We got to get through this quest so we can get the payoff, because the reader wants that payoff too. I mean, they're going to get dopamine from reading it just as you know, the characters would if they were real.
That good reminder, that thing you're waiting for, it's still going to happen. We're getting there.
We're getting there. We're going to go there. I mean, that's the fun part.
That's what we're talking about. We enjoyed about Captain America is, yes, they constantly deflected the story. It never went in a straight path the audience or the character was planning, but they still would catch it on the way to the next goal, the previous goal, so you'd still get that dopamine kick. You know, you still you can't just keep, you know, going on to another thing.
For no reason.
Still, but don't forget to, you know, essentially be forgiving of your audience. They will at some point have to put your story down. Yeah. And they may get distracted and forget, or maybe they were just, you know, lazily reading your story and just not concentrating too much on these details that you're trying to hint at. But now it's a couple chapters later, and that part of the story is coming into play, and you're just expecting them to remember it from 3 chapters back of the details of this. And it's like, it's a little unfair. They didn't know that this is why they needed to hear this.
Interesting. Yeah, because I think sometimes you also, when you're foreshadowing something, especially when you're like fantasy, or if you're doing a mystery or something like that, you want to be careful. It's like, how much can I mention this thing that's going to be a bit of foreshadowing before I give it away? And then it's not exciting anymore. So
I think of foreshadowing as like a warm-up. Like you're trying to prime the pump, if you will, to warm them up to the idea. So it's not a, how did this happen? Because that's like you're in danger of breaking that suspension of disbelief.
They just threw that thing in there because they couldn't solve their problem. And you're thinking, no, I really did know I was going to do this, but you didn't foreshadow it anywhere.
Right. Or you mean like Dumbledore's brother? Anyway. Sure. He always had it in your. Honey, nobody's buying the thing yourself.
We don't believe that.
No, because
it's like that came out of nowhere.
Right. Why wouldn't you then in the first or the second book have had Dumbledore say to Harry, you know, I grew up with a brother and sister, and it was really good for me growing up to know that I had these people around and they were interested in my life. So maybe it would be good that you have that. That's all Dumbledore had to say. And honestly, even when I was a kid, I had adults saying crap like that to me. And I'm like, I already have a brother and sister. I'm good. Thank you. People were always trying to encourage me to make friends. And I'm like, oh, have you met kids? They're stupid. You know, like, just was like me. But
oh my gosh.
If Dumbledore had always had siblings, he would have mentioned it. And again, that kind of foreshadowing is useful. It warms the reader up, even if it's several books later before there's a payoff. Little did we know.
Yeah, so, and you don't have to say exactly what having that sibling was going to do, but it's like it literally comes off like, wait, what?
I know, like I'm always fascinated.
I don't remember that.
I'm fascinated by people who think it's okay to write a character and they act like a lone wolf, and then all of a sudden, in the last quarter of the story or the book, really, suddenly they have a twin or something, and I'm like, they never mentioned having a sibling, let alone a twin. Like, I don't know anyone who has siblings who doesn't mention it to me. I never ask, hey, are you an only child, or I don't think I ask that much, but it usually comes up in conversation within the first few weeks of knowing a new friend. And so it's like, you need a certain level of foreshadowing, otherwise it does feel too abrupt.
Yeah.
Why didn't you warn me?
Because I have all of a sudden this problem I want to fix, and so I'm going to throw this.
And I did want to go back and rewrite a little. Because that's the really cool thing about editing and revisions. I'm just saying.
Hey, Glory.
I'm about to say, did Nia freeze or did I freeze?
No, you're both fine.
Okay.
No. Read the...
Oh, Maggie says...
Yeah, I'm reading.
In Black Panther, there were so many side storylines that I was more interested in than the main storyline. Love Chad and his character, but the women of Wakanda had such a vibrant potential. Okay. Here is my hot take about Marvel.
All right.
Marvel
All of the MCU.
Yeah, MCU.
This is specifically the MCU, not necessarily the comics, but the MCU.
Apologies if this spoils every Marvel movie and TV show ever for you. But here it goes. Every man in every MCU product is sad.
No, every lead character. Every male lead character.
My argument is
Every male lead.
Every man. But anyway, okay, fine. They're all sad boys. And every woman is competent. And these are the only two constants I see in all of the MCU, whether it's TV shows, movies, anything. Is that a woman? She's competent. She's the only one, the competent one in the room. Is that a man? Is he one of the main, actors? Oh, he's grieving. He doesn't know he's grieving, probably.
Very sad.
But he
is going through it.
It's very much
even if he's a billionaire.
I mean, like I keep quoting Hulk in Thor Ragnarok. Thor sad. Of like that is like every Marvel man. Bruce sad.
Yes.
Tony sad.
Insert name.
Hawkeye sad now. Like versus, Black Widow, very competent. She's doing the best she can. Is she sad? Nope. She's okay. She's come to a place of peace in her grieving process.
Yeah. Is Peggy Carter sad?
No. She's come to a place of peace in her grieving process. She's competent.
Is Pepper Potts sad?
She's come to a place of peace in her grieving process. She's competent. And so on. Of like every woman ever in Marvel is competent, and that's cool, that's fine. But every
and here's just don't worry, it's not much of a spoiler, but it is just something to look forward to. I can't pronounce the name of the military.
The Wakandan military, the
Palace Guard.
Dora something.
Dora Milaje.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. But
they
obviously they're competent because they're all women.
Yeah, they show up in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and again, they're competent.
They're competent.
Yeah.
They've obviously dealt with their grief, whatever that may be. I don't know. But why is it all the women are competent? Like, what do we say?
Are they not allowed to go through things, or is it just that the men continually go through the things?
It weirds me out, honestly. Of like, I don't know.
And why are none of the men competent?
Why are none of the men competent?
Like it's this
also,
weird...
why are none of the women grieving? Like that's weird. Like I'm like, I feel like there's weird. Why is this gendered? It's weird that it's gendered, and that's what makes me uncomfortable.
Like it's as taken for granted as Pixar's hips are gendered.
Yeah, have you ever noticed all the?
Yeah, are they overcompensating in a bad way? Like, oh, we don't want the women to look like they're weak, so now we've got to make it so that they're so competent that they're still not real women. It's almost like they're not real. But remember back in the 60s and 70s when
like it's a different form of Mary Janing characters.
Yeah. So it's like they overcorrected badly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, why are we
have these unrealistic women who have no feelings and are just confident all the time and don't ever go through anything, even though all the guys are miserable, even though their same friends died, but it's okay. Women are fine.
Women are fine. Yeah.
We're fine. Strong. We're all strong.
Testosterone causes insecurity and depression. I mean, you're not necessarily wrong.
And like one of the things, like I am very disturbed by watching, like I'm into the 4th episode. Who knows? It'll change. But for me, out of all the characters, I mean, there's a lot of characters in Falcon and Winter Soldier, just like any Marvel thing. But to me, surprisingly, the most, what do you call it? Not quite relatable, but the one most complex and that you feel for, so I guess relatable.
Sure.
Is Zemo.
Why is the relatable character, and why is it a rich white male?
A rich white male.
How did they do this?
Oh, do you know how upset I find that?
Like
I can't wait to watch it. I need more episodes.
Sam nor Bucky is very relatable.
Yeah, well, that's because Bucky grew up poor. just as Sam Wilson grew up working class, middle class, but I would say lower middle. No, they have a boat. I don't know. Anyway, but like Sam Wilson grew up, working middle class, and Bucky grew up even poor. We know this. These are the two quote unquote poor guys, and they are not relatable very much in the entire series so far in 4 episodes. And I'm like, but the rich Baron, who is one of the villains, not the villain, but he's one of, because he's from, Sokovia, he's another villain. Oh, he's the one who's sympathetic. He's the one that is talking about his dead son, because he lost his son. Loved Turkish delight, so he's offering it to other children. I'm like, can we not do better?
Yeah, I guess not.
I feel like we can, and that's, again, what we're trying to do here with storytelling and world-building conversations.
Yes.
So, let's inspire each other and everyone else. It's totally
give each other ideas.
It's like, whoa, that thing bothered you. It bothered me too. How about that, producers and people who are writing things?
But also the part of it didn't have to be that
learn.
way. Here's other ways to have done the same thing.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
I think that's probably what makes it so. What makes it worse is that you would think with everybody who works on these things to put these together. I mean, we're individuals working on our individual work, but with some of these, all of these movies and whatnot, there's entire teams, and nobody noticed that. Hey, you're making
people did
who are creating it, and then they don't change it. But
so there is a book. There's a book if you want to know how this happens. It's a very good book. I highly recommend it. Yes, it is written by a white man.
Go on.
It's okay.
Let's get here. What are we talking about?
The other head of Pixar.
Oh yes,
Catmull.
Okay.
All right, let me look it up.
So in it, he talks about, all right, what did it take to keep Pixar the creative and inclusive and enjoyable group, as well as producing these movies that people adore. It wasn't easy. They hit the same problems every creative company hits. But the difference was Catmull kept correcting it. He kept coming back and fixing that problem before it became endemic, systemic, whatever you want to call it. Because the people on top set the agenda, set the mood, they set the priorities, and they set the way everyone else inputs. So one of the stories he brings up is that when Pixar first made it with Toy Story, and they got Toy Story, and it was a big success. They finally got money. They're not going to close the doors like they were sure they were about to before Toy Story came out. They got a new office space. They got a big, big table for everyone to sit at. And they didn't notice it for the first few months. But Catmull started to notice that it was just like they talk about of the further away people were from Catmull and Lasseter, the less they spoke up, the less prestige they had, the less they could input into the process. The people standing just barely participated.
Wow.
And how he's like, nope, this has got to go. We got to go back to what we were doing because we're losing what gave us success, what allowed us to create something so original that people enjoyed. Because, I mean, really, you see the old versions of Toy Story, of what they were originally working on, it was bad. No one would have liked that movie. It was bad.
It was so bad, y'all. It was so bad.
But if you want to know, yes, people did see, but you have to have the people at the top set the situation so that when other people see it, they can safely inform others.
And that's what they mean about culture comes from the top down. That's what they're talking about. This happens again and again. It's such a pattern that people can confidently say, corporate culture comes from the top down. So however the leadership is informs that company's culture. So if that company culture is toxic in any form, oh, you better believe the leadership is absolutely okay with it, and frankly is probably setting a precedence for it. That's how it is. It's just, it is what that's what it is, you know?
It's so unfortunate because these little improvements, giving the women more depth, let them have some flow of feeling, and not having every single guy be so sad and emoting all the time. How much more would that have improved everything? And you don't have the people complaining like I noticed, you guys notice, I'm sure lots of other people notice it. It's like these sad superhero guys, like you're rich and you have superpowers and you're like the most depressed person. Oh, look, now that they get all of the guys together, it's still the same and they're just all that way. Okay, now it's really in our face. It's
versus like Taika Waititi taking over Thor Ragnarok, we suddenly see one of the rare times in Marvel where the women get to also be sad and emote.
Yes.
And there's some competency among the men.
Yes.
Right. We get to see it, reversed.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorites.
I know. I watched it so much.
You don't want to know how many times Glory watches that and just sleeps to it.
Yeah.
She doesn't make it out of the first scene in Thor Ragnarok. She usually passes out before Thor takes, what's his name, Ildur's.
Oh yeah, I'll pass out. Yeah, while Thor's still in chains in the opening scene.
Yeah, while Thor's still just
wondering why I'm here, and I'm like, nice.
Thor is just throwing shade.
I mean, like, I usually have to watch it at least twice to see the flaming goat because I'm already asleep the first time. It's so relaxing because, like, it's so much fun, and I know it's a compassionate story, and I know that they're, not going to go, oh, let's just have emotional outbursts and it's A-okay. I mean, like, quite frankly, Thor keep having emotional outbursts at Loki, like, it's your fault our dad's dying, and I'm like, okay, you're 1,500 years old. It's time you grow up. So, like, honestly, I wasn't that sad when his older sister broke Mew Mew of, like, you know what? He didn't exactly have it coming, but he kind of did. I hate whining. Ooh, of querulous. I do not like queruling people. Like a little bit of whining, everybody's entitled, but at a certain point, grow the fuck up. So,
yeah.
I was just like, this is not actually Loki's fault. And everyone has said at every stage of this so far in the movie, it's not Loki's fault. It was even Odin, who is, again, not a great father, is saying, this was always how it was going to be. Your mother calls me away. This had nothing to do with Loki, trapping me at an old folks home in Manhattan. It's nothing to do with that. But it is my time, and so I have to go. And there's Thor still, Loki.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? You deserve to have Mew Mew broken.
Like,
I'm not saying Loki made great choices. I'm not saying, oh, Loki's great and I stand Loki. Although, I do love a good trickster god. I mean, I can't help it. I love the monkey.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, y'all, I love tricksters. But I that emotional maturity gets old. I deal with it in my regular life. I literally left a toxic work environment at the library due to emotionally immature, narcissistic supervisors. It made me so sick. I ended up with sepsis in the hospital because the environment was literally so toxic to my mind.
It's literally toxic.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
It was so bad. I mean, like, I don't need this in my real life. I do not need this level of petulance among grown characters. I guess I'm like the fantasy reading kids, too, of like, I already have that in my real life. I don't want to read it.
I don't want that.
So I absolutely loved how, what is it? What are the Eternals? I can't remember the name of the, Jeff Goldblum. We stand a Goldblum.
Oh my gosh, that was
I love, because he's one of the
Love it.
Eternals. I love how he's like, "Oh, Thor, you think you are all that? No, 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 no."
I love it. I loved all of his scenes. Oh my gosh, when Hulk comes in and beats him up. Okay, sorry.
Yes, absolutely.
Let me not go off on it. But yeah,
I know. I can tell. We have a Thor episode coming up. If you would like to join us, Nia, I'm just maybe you already signed off on that. Hold up.
I might be. Is it this month? Is it this?
I want to say yes. Hold up. Let me see.
And say Iron Man's next.
No, Thor is May 3rd.
Is it a Monday?
Yeah, it's always a Monday. It's always a Monday. This is our schedule. I'm so sorry.
No, that's good. Mondays actually work for me. So
okay, it's always Monday because essentially we just use the same time slot and we have 2 or more shows each year. I mean seasons,
Yeah.
Yeah. Now next week, since it is about that time, I'm going to go ahead and say I got it out. Next week, April 19th, is Iron Man. Which, did you believe Nia was like, yeah, put me down. So we have Nia down. And then April 26th is Guardians of the Galaxy, which Nia said, put me down. So Nia's down here.
Okay, other than Thor, I'm sorry,
Thor,
I love Guardians.
Thor is the
I don't want to hear anyone trash talking. I don't care about any problems of Guardians of the Galaxy. I love it. I don't want to talk about the. No, I'm just kidding. I love
There's
it.
problems with the second Thor movie. Okay.
Oh, the Dark World Thor movie?
Yes.
Ooh, okay, that's fine.
Thor: The Dark World has some problems.
I like all of them. I love Natalie Portman in it.
Yes.
So, I mean, I can't say anything about that. Because, I watched Dark World just for Natalie Portman and Kat Dennings. I love their chemistry together. I love both of them. They're fantastic. It's so refreshing. They're more than just competent women of Marvel. They are 3-dimensional. They are sassy. They are cut-ups. And, they're looking for love in all the maybe wrong places. Maggie says, I really shouldn't bash the broody male stereotype because I wrote a whole series with one. LOL. Yes.
She
You know
is
what?
not joking.
I think one wouldn't bother me. It's when it's all of them all the time. Because people go through things. If you're white, the white lead guy in the show is going to go through things too. It's just when it's so much, and then it becomes a repetitive thing. That's when it gets to be like, okay, here we go.
That's why it's so hard to get through the first part of Endgame. Because just so much brooding.
The feels, they are endless. There's no grief processing. There's just cranky men.
Yeah. And there needs to be growth. And at some point,
I think, okay, I'm okay with a lot of grieving, broody males. I'm actually okay with it. But if they show them at various stages of processing their grief and where the stumbles are and where the successes are, I would actually be very pro this trope being exhausted by Marvel. But I don't really see it having real solutions or even process, as you put it, growth for them.
Yeah.
They just every movie, they're still broody, they're still miserable. Yeah. They're still not getting any further in their growth or their grieving process. And I'm like, well, when did grieving or not processing your grief become a spectator sport? This is odd.
Yeah. That's what it is. Yeah. It's too much. It's you gotta have more. Give me something else.
Which is why, people are looking forward to Thor: Love and Thunder, because Taika's shown that there can be more than just Thor sad.
Thor sad.
Thor sad.
No, is Thor really sad? I'm not sure. We know that Thor's sad.
We know.
But yeah, versus everyone wants variety. We want novelty. Give us a change in the story.
Yes.
That was what people enjoyed, and why the first 3 Iron Man movies were so successful was each one built on, but was not just like the previous movie.
Yes. I agree with that.
They were all very different stories and worked on different aspects and characters. But, Marvel's now done a lot of stories. Some of them are starting to get a little repetitious in what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Why are we still
They need to work on that.
talking about the arrested grieving process of men? Why are we, I don't mean you and me, and, I mean, why is Marvel, so overly focused with this?
Do they feel like that's what makes that our leading guy is not going to be compelling if he's not doing this, which is totally not true.
On the other hand, I do have hope because, WandaVision, it is, at least last I heard, is spinning off what's his name, Park's FBI character into a series.
He's great.
Jimmy Woo
Yeah.
Okay.
This is not a sad character. This is just an interesting character.
No, he's not sad. It's refreshing.
Yes.
And that's what people liked about him.
Also, he is also a little sassy, and I like that.
Yes, that's true. He and Kat Denning really make a good pair.
They have great chemistry. I love their characters together. I also love Monica Rambeau. Yes.
Yes.
I can't wait to see more of what happens with her character, but I'm also like, please don't mess it up, Marvel, please.
I know. Oh my gosh.
Just because
this is the character I've wanted for years, Monica Rambeau. So.
And it's please don't pull a DC, and actually now at this point, now that I think about it, no, don't pull a Marvel as well. I don't want to just watch Rambeau versus Carol Danvers. I don't care for this again. Okay, I don't want to just two big powered people. We want to.
No,
they're both good guys. Let's have a fight.
Yes, I
don't want that.
The catty women,
I don't want that.
I mean, that's what I hated about Captain America: Civil War. This is so forced. I don't care to watch, Iron Man and Tony in this movie.
I literally picked up my tablet and started playing my game when I was watching in Civil War. They're I swear, did it go on 20 minutes? It felt like 20 minutes. Okay.
Oh yeah, it was 20 minutes.
I don't know.
I'm 20 minutes
I
movie.
get out of that.
It's so
that
boring.
Was wow.
I liked the part about Black Panther and Zemo talking, because one was essentially Zemo stuck in grief, and there is T'Challa who is trying to go, oh, I see what's happening with you. I need to actually let go of the part I'm holding on to so I can keep moving forward in my grief. I loved that scene so freaking much.
Emotional growth.
It was wonderful to see a compare and contrast. And, that both characters really did come off as earnest. I absolutely loved how that scene played out. I thought that was a really wonderful use of the character of T'Challa. And Zemo, actually. Zemo was really useful in that way. But, meanwhile, Steve and Tony are having a battle royale, and I could not care less. It was so bad. It was boring. It was boring. I do not care about superhuman serum versus technology. I don't care. You have not hooked me in on this one. It's fantasy. It's not real technology. Maybe if it was real technology versus real human serum, maybe I might be interested.
Maybe. No, sometimes it's so contrived, and it's you just don't want it in the story. And it's just why they could have cut this.
Yeah. But no, it really was 20 minutes.
And it would have been fine.
It felt so long. It felt so long. I just, especially they keep emoting while they're hitting each other, and I'm like, okay, so all right, fun fact, Tom and I are 3 years apart, and I'm the older one, so I was definitely a tall kid, by comparison, because boys develop a little later. And I'm here to tell you, Tom and I have definitely fought it out at home, wrestled out, smacked each other around. Thankfully, we're both durable children. And even when we were fighting and wrestling out our troubles, our issues with each other, we would, however, most of the time be talking to each other of what we're upset about while, yelling at each other, whatever. But we would, by the time we stopped fighting, we would actually be okay with each other, or at least feel heard by the other one. And that was a long way toward us coming to, you know, a place of understanding with each other.
Yeah.
And like, but yet Steve and Tony did not have this at the end of a 20 freaking minute fight.
Versus, you know who it is?
Like,
I can't make it make sense.
You know,
I can't make it make sense.
Versus Coming to America sequel. At the beginning, we see this with Akeem, you know, sparring with his daughters.
Right.
And at the same time, he's talking, and they are talking about some of their current problems and issues while they're doing this physical work.
Yeah, I kind of like that.
Yeah. I mean, and that was how we used to. We would spar, we would wrestle each other. It was more like WWE style wrestling. It was, yeah. Like, our parents had rules like no bruises where clothes don't cover. And if you break furniture, it is over. You better not break furniture. And if anybody has to see a doctor, there will be no fighting ever again. You will both be grounded permanently. That sort of deal. But I mean, we did spar out our troubles with each other. And it honestly, over time, we learned how to deal with our troubles, our differences of opinion, our you know, hurt feelings or whatever. We learned to communicate with each other. And now we are best friends. Our parents didn't get involved other than, keep working it out with each other. You know, like, other than
refed
that.
Occasionally.
They what?
Refed.
Is that they
refereed?
Yes, yeah. I mean, there was that time where I didn't, But it's good that we're durable. But, I mean, we were allowed to work out our problems, but we would work out our problems rather than just trying to annihilate each other. That's when you have love with someone else that you have a difference of opinion with, you want to reach an understanding and not just, I want to hurt you, period. Like, that's not really, that didn't feel authentic even in that fight.
Yeah. We're just going to beat each other up and argue about it and nothing's going to get resolved. Yeah, that's not satisfying at all.
But yeah, that's, all right. Well, how's everybody doing? It seems like maybe we might be coming to a place to wrap up.
Yeah, I've got to go in about 5.
Yeah,
so.
like
I just looked at the time. I'm like,
a total, bitch about the terrible fight at the end of Civil War. Okay,
it's okay. It was bad.
I had feelings about the lack of, coherent feelings.
Like,
and now you see what why I joke with Glory about every show. No, none of our guests have any idea what they're getting into. They think they know. No.
I had no idea.
We don't see the world like everyone else.
I love it though, because you know what? It's things that a lot of times I'm like, yeah,
Yeah, we get that a lot from people. Now I see it. Yeah, I'm like, because we do see things a little differently than apparently most people.
Yeah, and then some things that you think that bothered me, but probably didn't bother anybody else, and then you guys are like, no, that was, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Other people were thinking that too. It's not just me. Okay.
Exactly. Well, Nia, I hope you had a wonderful time. I've loved that you came.
Yeah, me too.
I had a great time. Thank you guys for inviting me. And
would you like to do an outro?
Sure. I don't really have an outro, but I'll just say I'm Nia with the Vixen of Fiction. You can find me here on YouTube, or you can find me on Twitch. I do live stream writing sprints about 2 to 3 times a week. On Wednesday, I do writing sprints, and Saturday and Sunday. Wednesday, I'll be on Twitch and YouTube, and I'll be with a friend, Maddie from Bound by Words. I do like live streaming with friends, so that's me.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, guys. This was so much fun.
I'm glad you had a good time. I definitely did it. I always worry, like, I had a wonderful time, but did other people?
Oh, yeah. But sometimes, because I know, okay, so Glory told me to just jump in, but I'm a big listener, so sometimes I'm like, oh, yeah. And I'm like, oh, I need to say something. I should say something. I'm like watching you guys, like, yeah.
Well, I don't feel like people should feel like a strong, like, oh, I have to perform. Like, no, if you want to sit there quietly and listen and just nod or go, okay, I do have something, go right ahead, because like I don't know. I guess it's maybe I'm nothing without an audience anyway. Of like, I like having listeners. I like knowing that other people are like, yeah, I'm vibing on this. I absolutely, I agree with you, or at least, I think I'm thinking about what you're saying, and this is really interesting. I love that. But like people are like, oh, well, that'll just be me. Like I don't have anything contributed. I'm like, no, I would love to see your face. Thank you very much.
Because it also helps give us really quick, instant feedback about, are we being understood, or
Yes.
do we need to change our approach to what we're saying because it's not quite defined enough? Like it's easy, to do that when Gloria and I discuss these ideas multiple times before the show.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
so
and you guys know each other so well that you probably have that thing where you just kind of like really are tracking with each other's what each other's saying.
Oh, like I will call him on his stuff. He'll call me on mine. So no. We're both autistic, but that doesn't mean we have a hive mind with each other. It means that we still struggle to.
Oh, I can tell. I see that.
Like Password is really fun to watch us play. Yes. We have very creative ways of playing the game of Password.
Right.
What word are you looking for?
Yeah, give me a hint. A person, a place, a thing, a mineral. What you got? Yes. Okay. I again forgot to write something down for Tom, but this is Tom, and he is a great person. He is also very talented and available to help with any tech support needs that you may have with your router, your phone, what have you, because he enjoys being helpful and he likes researching stuff. Let's see. Also, he is a very talented photographer, and he is a great story development editor. Did I forget anything? I don't know. Okay.
Probably not.
Well, that's what I got. We're trying to practice essentially outroing each other, because it's so hard for us to outro ourselves, because we grew up in households where like you're not supposed to brag on yourself, even when it is absolutely true and totally deserved. And so I thought, well, let's try practicing doing it for each other. And maybe by the time we get good at doing these, essentially they're pitches, if you will, then we can then transition to doing ourselves. I don't know.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's a human experiment. So, I see what you're doing, Tom. All right, Tom. It's you're up. What do you want to do?
All right, so let me combine two things in one. So this is Gloria. Among her many talents, including being a storyteller, and one of our last rants we were going to have about these movies, because in particular, since these are all people of color, particularly African American people, the sequel to Coming to America definitely did not have as good a lighting, and neither did Black Panther, as like the original Coming to America has amazing lighting for all of the characters. Yeah. And so I'm going to show you a few images to show why, when we say, especially Gloria will say, it's not hard to light people of color. If anything, it's actually a bit easier.
It's easier than like a lot of white people, frankly. Because I grew up with hearing like, oh, it's so hard to light people of color. That's why the models don't look as good in the makeup ads and the da-da-da. And it turned out, because I am a professional photographer, it turned out that is racism. It's not true.
It's actually a bit easier.
It's actually easier. So here's some of my photography that Tom asked me to send him from my portraiture.
Sorry about that. Give me one moment.
Yeah, so I had wanted to practice my portraiture. And so these are some of my subjects, not all of them, but to like show how it is very easy to make African American skin radiant and pop. It's very easy. So what I want to say is you literally need 3 elements. Nice. You need a backlight to backlight them. You need a high key light, and that's where you'll like see, as you see on her, you can see the high points, where it's almost white. And then you need a diffuse light to get that all over glow. And that's it. That's literally it. It's so beautifully easy. And look how gorgeous African American skin could look.
Oh,
So
nice.
anytime versus, I sent you that small one. It won't show it big enough. Darn it. I wish that one. So she has olive tone skin. This is the model's name's Heather, and it was very difficult to make her not. Yeah, this is the one where it didn't work, and I was like, Joey, like, do you see how you can see? Even though I'm sorry, the picture's small, you can see the wrinkles. It highlights the wrinkles in an unattractive way. Olive skin can be more of a challenge to light than, honestly, African American skin is so delightfully easy. I'm like, it's all racism, it turns out, from my research. And this is our mother and stepfather. Mom has passed away about a decade ago. Mom also had olive tone skin. I did eventually learn how to light olive tone skin very well without essentially creating those sort of Bela Lugosi shadows, and that is by giving a warm amber gel to their skin, so you're not building up extra olive tone shadows. And so that's my photography portraits.
But that is actually more difficult than this. It actually requires more lighting.
Yeah, that's Candy, and she is reciting some of her poetry. It was part of like a poetry series I was doing of photographing, doing portraiture of people while they recited their own poetry, because like to kind of like, even though it's a still photo, that emotion.
Yeah, she looks perfect.
Isn't she gorgeous?
This is not hard lighting. This is easy lighting. This is less lighting than...
And this is also, the other one, the black and whites, are also from a Poetry Out Loud, the Jazz Lab, where they're doing spoken word poetry with music and stuff. It was a really cool session.
And that is so much simpler than what we have to do for this model.
Tone. Yeah.
You see, there's so many shadows.
Yeah.
It's hard not to, it's hard for the skin tone not to develop shadows and show extra detail. So, it's harder to just make it pop.
So yes, that was my research as a photographer when I really worked in my capacity as a professional photographer. Since I had grown up hearing this, I was like, is it actually harder to learn how to light African American skin? And if it is, I better start learning now, since I didn't really know anybody I asked a lot of photographers, do you know how to light African American skin? I hear it's hard. Do you have any tips? And everyone was like, oh no, I don't know how to light African American skin. Even other African American photographers told me that. And I'm like, what? So I went and started researching by doing a lot of portraiture to if it's this hard, I better start figuring it out, right? And that's when we found out, oh no, it's delightfully easy. What are people complaining about? Is it just racism?
I don't know. Maybe it's putting people together. Okay, so information here. So my husband is white. My kids are all biracial, so they're all between really, really light to more medium brown. Mm-hmm. Lighting us all together, like my daughters especially, they fight for the best lighting. It will make me look darker. My husband looks like he's glowing because he's, so maybe it's all of them together trying that. And if you're only focusing on the white person, then maybe when you're the like, I guess in film, a lot of the rant. I know, and I gotta go, and I got
sorry.
The really gray lighting that they're using a lot now does not look really good on a lot of Black people, and sometimes it's so dark that you can't even hardly see them.
And that was our complaint about the Coming to America
sequel,
like it. Was why is the skin not glowing, especially the darker extras? It's very easy if you already have diffuse light, just high key lights. It's real easy to make them pop. If you throw in a backlight, it's even easier. And we're literally talking about, you can put down those little battery operated LEDs now on the floor, and it puts out enough light to make the back pop. And so you can just literally throw them everywhere around a room. So just a quick photography hack there. If anybody is interested, you get those little LED, that you can attach under your cabinet and just use those. But yeah, I don't know. the high key part is the important bit, and to keep the high key mostly off of the lighter tone skin, because they'll blow out. That's what we call it when it's white, like white, not like white, that's a blowout. And so because like you can't put a high key on me. I then no longer have facial features. That's why I have to use diffuse light. And then a backlight still looks good for me because, again, it does offer a more of a shadow opportunity around certain areas. But that's all I could say without like seeing family photos to like troubleshoot. But in Coming to America, where
we do a lot of outside,
is African American. It's like, I'm sorry, what's going on?
Yeah, why? What's the excuse now?
Like, okay, I could see where, when you have a big range of skin tones, I could see there being some special challenges that a lighting professional would be needed for. But when it's all African American cast, in various scenes, I don't know what's going on. I don't know why it's a problem.
And that's unfortunate.
So, anyway, thank you all.
Thank you for the tips. That's awesome, Gloria.
Yeah, so yes, thank you, Tom, for that outro. Yes, most people don't know that I, in another life, I was a professional photographer, and that I love to do portraiture. And next week, we will be doing Iron Man April 19th. So, what's your Iron Man? Thank you so much. Let me, getting used to it. Oh, yeah, there is an outro. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.